Before we dive in, drop a quick hi in the comments. It may seem small, but trust me, it really helps YouTube share this story with more sci-fi fans like us. I'd love to see who's watching.
The Nexus did not have time to raise an alarm. The first breaching pod tore through the station's hull like a claw through flesh, spraying molten metal across the diplomatic corridor. Atmosphere screamed into vacuum. Lights died. And before the emergency bulkheads could seal, the pod split open. Dracorath soldiers poured out. 2.7 meters of scaled muscle and armored hide, crocodilian heads snapping left and right, golden eyes already tracking targets. Their weapons barked short, brutal bursts of plasma that turned Council security into ash and scattered bone. More pods hit, dozens, then hundreds. The Nexus shuddered under the assault. Lights flickered. The station's ancient superstructure groaned as explosive charges detonated along its spine, severing primary power conduits and communication arrays in precise sequence. In the Grand Chamber, 37 species sat frozen in their seats. Delegates, ambassadors, representatives of civilizations that had maintained peace for over 4,000 years. They had been debating trade tariffs when the first explosion rocked the station. Now they watched the main doors buckle inward. Ambassador Turan of the Thalkai rose from his seat, his feathered crest flattened against his skull, an instinctive response to danger his species had never fully shed. Around him, other delegates scrambled for exits that no longer existed. Some called for security that would never come. Others simply stood, unable to process what was happening. The doors exploded inward. Dracorath soldiers flooded the chamber, their heavy footfalls shaking the ancient floor. They spread out in tactical formation, weapons raised, and began firing. No demands, no warnings, no negotiation. Just slaughter. The Felnorian ambassador took 3 plasma bolts to the chest before he could rise from his chair. The Vreth delegation, all 4 of them, died in a tight cluster near the eastern exit, cut down as they tried to flee. The Omuran representative, a species known for their pacifism, simply closed his eyes and accepted his death in silence. Turan did not run. He had lived for over 200 years. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had brokered treaties between species that had warred for millennia. He knew with absolute certainty that this was the end of everything the Council represented. But he also knew something else. He pushed through the chaos, moving against the tide of fleeing delegates. Plasma fire scorched the air around him. A bolt grazed his shoulder, searing through feathers and flesh. He ignored the pain. There was something he had to do. He reached the edge of the chamber and pressed himself against the wall, momentarily shielded by an overturned table. His hands moved to his wrist, to the simple device strapped there, a gift, a token of friendship from a species the Council had deemed too primitive to join. General Floyd Carpenter of Earth had given it to him after their last meeting. A pleasant conversation, warm, hopeful. "If you ever need us," Carpenter had said, "this will reach us, anywhere in the galaxy. It is not much, but it is a promise." Turan had worn it every day since. His clawed fingers found the activation switch. The device was crude by galactic standards. No encryption, no quantum entanglement, just a simple radio beacon broadcasting on an old Earth frequency. He pressed the switch. A small light blinked green. The signal began to pulse. Turan looked up. A Dracorath soldier stood over him, plasma rifle aimed at his chest. The creature's jaws parted, revealing rows of serrated teeth. Its golden eyes showed nothing. No hatred, no satisfaction, no mercy. Just purpose. "You are too late," Turan said quietly. "Someone will come." The soldier fired. Turan's body crumpled against the wall, smoke rising from the wound in his chest. His eyes dimmed. His feathered crest fell still. But on his wrist, the small green light continued to blink. The signal continued to pulse. The massacre lasted 11 minutes. When it was over, the Grand Chamber was silent. Bodies lay scattered across the floor. Delegates, security, staff. The air was thick with smoke and the copper tang of alien blood. 37 species. 4,000 years of cooperation. Ended in less time than it took to brew tea. The main doors opened again. Tyrannus Vorak Dreth entered. He was enormous. 3.1 meters of scarred, scaled flesh. His hide bore the marks of 100 conquests, old wounds that had healed into ridges of proud scar tissue. His tail dragged behind him, heavy enough to shatter bone. His golden eyes surveyed the carnage with the dispassion of a predator examining a successful hunt. He walked to the center of the chamber. His soldiers parted before him, heads bowed. He stopped beside the body of the council's chief mediator, a small, fragile creature that had spent its life advocating for peace. Vorak Dreth placed one massive foot on the corpse's chest. "This," he rumbled, his voice like gravel dragged over stone, "is what cooperation earns you." He looked up at the observation galleries, where recording devices still flickered with power. His jaws parted in what might have been a smile. "I am Vorak Dreth. For 10,000 years, my people waited beyond your borders. We watched you grow soft. We watched you forget what strength means." He pressed down, bones cracked beneath his foot. "The Dracorath Imperium does not negotiate. We do not join. We do not share." His tail swept across the floor, scattering bodies like discarded toys. "There is no more council. There is only rule. Comply, or be removed." He turned and walked toward the exit. His soldiers fell in behind him, their footsteps echoing through the silent chamber. Behind them, amid the carnage and the smoke and the cooling bodies, a small green light continued to blink on a dead ambassador's wrist. The signal pulsed on. 12 hours later, on the other side of the galaxy, a solar flare ended. Earth's communication arrays came back online one by one. Satellites rebooted. Ground stations reconnected. The blackout that had isolated the Sol system for half a day lifted like fog burning off under morning sun. In the mountains of New Mexico, the SETI array stirred to life. Dr. Emil Vasquez was the first to notice. He had been reviewing data logs when the anomaly appeared, a faint signal buried in the static, barely distinguishable from background noise. He ran it through the filters twice, then a third time. The signal persisted. "That is not possible," he muttered. He called his supervisor. His supervisor called the director. The director called someone in Washington, who called someone at the Pentagon, who called someone who knew exactly what they were looking at. The signal was not alien. It was human. An old Earth military frequency, emergency band, the kind of thing built into survival kits and diplomatic packages. Simple, analog, designed to be heard across any distance, through any interference. But the signal was not coming from Earth. It was coming from the Galactic Core. General Floyd Carpenter arrived at the facility 3 hours after the call. He was 61 years old, a career soldier who had served in conflicts most people had already forgotten. His face was lined with decades of hard decisions. His eyes were tired but sharp. He listened to the signal for a long time. The technicians watched him, waiting for orders, waiting for some explanation. Carpenter said nothing. He knew that frequency. He had authorized it himself, years ago, for a diplomatic package intended for a single recipient, a gift for a friend, a promise. Tren. The signal was not a call for help. There was no voice, no message, just a pulse, steady, unending. A beacon meant to be activated only if everything else had failed. Carpenter understood what that silence meant. Whatever had happened, Teren had not lived long enough to explain it. No follow-up transmission, no clarification, just the beacon, repeating into the void. Something had gone catastrophically wrong. And in his final moments, Teren had done the only thing left to him. He had reached out to Earth. Carpenter turned away from the console. His staff waited for him to speak. "Sir?" someone asked. "What do we do?" "Find out what happened," Carpenter said. every listening post, every relay we can access, any scrap of data the flare did not burn. I want answers." He walked toward the door, stopped, looked back. "And get me a line to the Joint Chiefs. Secure channel. No leaks." The room erupted into motion. The answers came in pieces. Over the next 72 hours, Earth's intelligence network worked around the clock. Listening posts scattered across the outer colonies picked up fragments of transmissions. Deep space relays, some damaged by the flare, others simply too far to receive clear signals, slowly fed data back to Earth. The picture that emerged was worse than anyone had imagined. The Galactic Council had fallen, not collapsed, not destabilized, fallen, completely, violently, in a single coordinated strike. Intercepted communications painted a grim portrait. Distress calls from dozens of species, most cut short mid-transmission. Automated emergency broadcasts from stations that no longer responded. And beneath it all, a single message repeating on every frequency the galaxy had ever used. The Dracorath Imperium had announced itself. Carpenter stood in the Pentagon's secure briefing room, surrounded by admirals, generals, and intelligence directors. The screen before them displayed the translated message. The words hung in the air like poison. "I am Vorak Dreth. The Council is no more. The Dracorath Imperium rules. All species will submit. All resistance will be extinguished. You have no allies. You have no hope. You have only one choice. Kneel or be erased." Silence filled the room. Admiral Hendricks, a Navy man with 40 years of service, was the first to speak. "Who the hell are these things?" "Unknown," replied Director Simmons of Naval Intelligence. "We have no records of the Dracorath in any Council database we have accessed. No contact, no sightings, no references. It is as if they did not exist until 3 days ago." "They existed," Carpenter said quietly. "They were just waiting." He stepped closer to the screen. The message played again. Vorak Dreth's rumbling voice filled the room. "Run the visual," Carpenter ordered. The screen shifted. Grainy footage, recovered from a damaged relay near the galactic core, showed the aftermath of the attack. The Nexus station, its hull breached in dozens of places. Bodies floating in the vacuum. Dracorath warships, circling like predators around a carcass. And there, in the center of the frame, the Grand Chamber, its great windows shattered, its floors stained with blood. "Freeze there," Carpenter said. The image stopped. He walked closer, studying the carnage. His eyes found something near the edge of the frame, a body slumped against a wall. Feathered crest flattened against an avian skull, a small device on its wrist, still blinking. Terren. Carpenter stared at the image for a long moment. No one in the room spoke. "He activated the beacon," Carpenter said finally. He turned to face the assembled commanders. Terren didn't have time to explain what was happening. He only knew something had gone terribly wrong. And when he needed someone he trusted, he reached out to the one place he could. He walked to the head of the table. His voice was steady, but something cold had settled behind his eyes. "The Dracorath think the galaxy is theirs now. They think they have already won. They do not know about us. Earth was never inducted. We are not in their records." He placed both hands on the table. "But in 6 months, maybe less, they will come here. They will expect another easy conquest, another species to kneel." He met the eyes of the officers around the table. "We won't give them that." Admiral Hendricks leaned forward. "What are you proposing, General?" Carpenter straightened. "Full mobilization. Every shipyard, every weapons platform, every soldier we have. We activate the Aegis Ring. We bring Longbow Base to full operational status. We build a fleet, and we train it to kill these things." "Are we ready for a war of that magnitude?" Simmons asked. Carpenter didn't hesitate. "We don't get to choose that," he said. "They're coming eventually. The only question is whether we meet them prepared, or on our knees. He turned back to the screen. The frozen image of Teren's body stared back at him, a friend, a diplomat, a believer in peace, dead now, because peace had failed. He walked toward the door, stopped, looked back one final time. Get me everything we have on the Dracorath. Ship designs, weapon signatures, tactical patterns, anything our listening posts have captured. I want to know how they fight. And then? Hendricks asked. Carpenter's jaw tightened. And then we teach them how we fight. He left the room. Behind him, the message from Vorak Dreth continued to play on loop. The Apex's voice echoed through the empty briefing room, promising extinction to all who resisted. Somewhere in the static, buried beneath the threats and the declarations of conquest, a small human signal still pulsed from the ruins of the Nexus. A beacon from a dead friend, a promise Earth intended to keep. 6 months later, the Dracorath came to Sol. Their fleet emerged from the void like a wound tearing open in space. Black ships, angular, jagged profiles that resembled predators frozen in metal. They numbered in the hundreds, dreadnoughts, carriers, assault cruisers, arranged in perfect formation as they crossed the outer boundary of the system. At the head of the armada, the largest vessel of all, the Throne of Scales. Vorak Dreth's flagship, a mobile fortress bristling with plasma lances and gravity shears, its hull scarred from 100 conquests. The Dracorath had come to claim another world. On the bridge of the Throne of Scales, Vorak Dreth stood before the observation viewport, his massive form silhouetted against the distant yellow sun. His golden eyes studied the system before him. 8 planets, a scattering of moons. One world teeming with life. Earth. His second in command, a scarred veteran named Corax, approached with a tactical display. Apex, we are detecting orbital structures around the 3rd planet. Primitive construction. No energy shields. No plasma signatures. Vorak Dreth's jaws parted slightly. Amusement. Primitives, he rumbled. The Council's records mentioned this species. They were denied membership. Too young. Too weak. They were not on the subjugation list, Corax noted. Then they will learn submission firsthand. Vorak Dreth turned from the viewport. Open a channel, all frequencies. Let them hear the voice of their new masters. The communication array activated. Vorak's message broadcast across the Sol system, drowning out every frequency, every signal, every transmission. Species of the 3rd planet, I am Vorak Dreth, the Apex. The Dracorath Imperium has claimed this galaxy. Your council is ash. Your allies are corpses. You stand alone. He paused, letting the words sink in. You have one opportunity. Kneel before the Imperium. Surrender your world. Accept your place as servants. Resist, and you will cease to exist. You have 1 hour to respond. The message ended. Silence followed. The Dracorath fleet held position, waiting. Vorak Dreth returned to his command throne, settling his massive form into the ancient seat. His tail coiled around the base. His claws tapped against the armrest with patient rhythm. 1 hour. More than enough time for primitives to realize their situation, to understand the futility of resistance, to beg for mercy. The minutes passed. Corax monitored the communication arrays. His frill twitched with growing unease. Apex. There is no response. They are afraid. Give them time. More minutes. The tactical display showed no movement from the human orbital structures. No transmissions. No distress signals. No pleas for negotiation. Nothing. Corax's unease deepened. Apex. Still no response. No communication of any kind. They are simply silent. Vorak Dreth's eyes narrowed. This was not fear. Fear produced panic, chaos. desperate attempts at communication. "Scan their orbital platforms again," he ordered. Korax complied. The results appeared on the tactical display. His scales paled. Apex, the orbital structures. They are not stations. "Explain." "They are weapons. 12 platforms arranged in a ring around the planet. Electromagnetic accelerators. Kinetic projectile systems. They are." The first railgun slug hit the Dracorath Vanguard at 17 kilometers per second. It struck the lead destroyer without warning, a tungsten rod the size of a ground car, accelerated to a fraction of light speed by the Aegis ring's magnetic rails. The destroyer's shields flared, held for a fraction of a second, and then collapsed. The slug punched through the hull from bow to stern, exiting in a spray of molten metal and venting atmosphere. The ship died instantly. Then the rest of the ring opened fire. 12 platforms. 48 railgun batteries, all firing in synchronized sequence, pouring kinetic death into the Dracorath formation. Slugs tore through shields that had never faced this kind of sustained bombardment. Ships that had conquered 100 worlds found themselves shredded by simple metal, moving at impossible speed. Vorak Dreth surged to his feet. "Return fire!" The Dracorath fleet responded. Plasma lances lit the void, sending searing bolts of energy toward the orbital platforms. Gravity shears activated, warping space in lethal patterns. The counterattack was massive, overwhelming, exactly as it had been against every other species they had conquered. But the Aegis ring had been built by humans. And humans had learned, long ago, that shields could be drained, that energy weapons could be dodged, that the simplest weapons were often the most effective. The platforms were armored, not shielded, thick layers of tungsten and ceramic composite. No energy signature to target, no shields to collapse. The Dracorath plasma lances hit them and scorched their surfaces, but the platforms kept firing, and firing, and firing. On the bridge of the UEDC Carthage, General Floyd Carpenter watched the battle unfold. The flagship hung in formation with the rest of the human fleet, 47 vessels arranged in 3 battle groups behind the protection of the Aegis ring. The Carthage was a heavy carrier, bristling with fighter bays and torpedo tubes. Around it, destroyers and frigates held position, waiting for the order to advance. Carpenter stood at the central command console, his face illuminated by the tactical display. 6 months of preparation. 6 months of building, training, planning, all for this moment. "Aegis ring reports nominal function," his tactical officer announced. "Enemy Vanguard has lost 14 ships. They are attempting to reform." "Longbow status?" "Primed and ready, awaiting your order." Carpenter nodded. The longbow stations on Luna were the second phase. Kinetic launch platforms designed to hurl massive tungsten rods across the void. Ship killers, each one capable of cracking a dreadnought in half. "Hold longbow in reserve. Let them commit their fleet first." "Aye, sir." On the display, the Dracorath formation was shifting. They had recovered from the initial shock and were pushing forward, their dreadnoughts forming a wall of shields and firepower. Plasma lances hammered at the Aegis ring. One platform took a direct hit from a gravity shear, its structure twisting and crumpling before it exploded. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we are receiving a transmission from the enemy flagship." On screen, Vorak Dreth's face appeared on the main display. His golden eyes burned with fury. His jaws were parted, revealing rows of serrated teeth. "Humans." He spoke the word like a curse. "You dare to strike at the Imperium? You dare to resist?" Carpenter looked at the screen. His expression did not change. "You have made a mistake," Vorak Dreth continued. "A fatal one. I have conquered 100 species, burned 1,000 worlds. You are nothing. Insects. I will tear your fleet apart and feast on your ashes." The transmission waited for a response. Carpenter reached out and terminated the channel. "Helm," he said calmly. "Signal the fleet. All ahead full. Hammer formation." The UEDC Carthage surged forward. Behind it, the entire human fleet followed. Destroyers, frigates, cruisers, all advancing in a wedge formation with the flagship at its center. The UEDC Ironfall took point, its assault batteries already charging. The two fleets closed the distance. And the real battle began. The void between Earth and the Dracorath Armada became a killing field. Railgun slugs and plasma lances crossed in the darkness. Ships on both sides died, some quickly, torn apart by kinetic impacts, others slowly, burning from internal fires as atmosphere vented into space. The Carthage shuddered as a plasma bolt grazed its port armor, scorching a black scar across the hull. Carpenter gripped the command console, but did not flinch. Damage report. Port armor section 7 compromised. No hull breach. Damage control teams responding. Keep firing. Target their carriers. The human fleet was smaller, outgunned in raw firepower, but they had advantages the Dracorath had not anticipated. Speed. Human ships were faster, more maneuverable. They dodged plasma lances that would have hit slower vessels. They slipped through gravity shear fields that should have torn them apart. Coordination. Every human ship operated as part of a single tactical network, sharing targeting data in real time. When one ship fired, 3 others adjusted their aim to compensate. The Dracorath fought as individuals. The humans fought as one. And most importantly, they had studied their enemy. 6 months of intercepted transmissions. 6 months of analyzing Dracorath tactics, weapons, shield frequencies. 6 months of learning exactly how to kill them. Enemy shields are weakening on the forward dreadnoughts, the tactical officer reported. Sustained fire is draining their power reserves faster than they can compensate. Concentrate fire on the lead ship, all batteries. The Ironfall acknowledged the order. Its main guns pivoted, locked onto the lead Dracorath dreadnought, and opened fire. 4 railgun slugs hit the ship in rapid succession. The first collapsed the shields. The second breached the hull. The third and fourth tore through the interior, shredding crew quarters and engineering sections. The dreadnought listed, trailing fire and debris. Then it exploded. A cheer went up across the human fleet, but Carpenter silenced it with a raised hand. "Stay focused. This is not over." He was right. On the throne of scales, Vorak Dreth watched the destruction of his dreadnought with cold fury. These primitives, these insects, they were actually fighting back, actually killing his ships. Unacceptable. "Launch the boarding swarms," he ordered. "All carriers. Overwhelm them with numbers. Take their ships from within." Across the Dracorath fleet, carrier bays opened. Thousands of boarding pods launched into the void, each one carrying a squad of Dracorath soldiers. They streaked toward the human formation like a cloud of metal locusts, aiming for the gaps in the defensive fire. The Carthage's sensors screamed warnings. "Multiple inbound contacts! Boarding pods! Hundreds of them!" Carpenter's jaw tightened. This was the Dracorath's preferred tactic. Breach the hull, flood the corridors with soldiers, take the ship through brutal close-quarters combat. "All ships, defensive fire. Point defense batteries, full auto. Do not let them attach." Guns across the fleet swiveled, filling the void with streams of tracer fire. Boarding pods exploded by the dozens. But there were too many. Some slipped through. They hit the hulls of human ships with magnetic clamps, their cutting torches already burning through armor. On the destroyer UEDC, relentless, the first Dracorath soldiers breached the hull. They came through in a wave, 2.7 meters of scaled muscle and armored hide, plasma rifles barking, claws slashing. The human crew met them in the corridors with everything they had. Sergeant Major Darnell Vickers was the first to fire. His rifle bucked against his shoulder, putting 3 rounds into the chest of the lead Dracorath. The creature staggered but did not fall. Its scales absorbed the impacts like armor. It raised its plasma rifle and fired back. Vickers dove behind a bulkhead as the bolt scorched past him. "Armor-piercing rounds!" he shouted. "Aim for the joints! The throat!" His squad adjusted. The next volley targeted the gaps in the Dracorath's natural armor, the softer scales at the elbows, knees, and neck. Soldiers fell, but more kept coming. The corridor became a slaughterhouse. Across the fleet, similar battles raged. Humans and Dracorath fought hand-to-hand in the tight confines of ship corridors. The Dracorath were larger, stronger, harder to kill. But the humans were fighting for their home, their planet, their species. They did not retreat. On the Carthage, Carpenter received the reports with grim focus. Boarding parties on Relentless, Indomitable, and Fury's Edge, all ships reporting heavy resistance. Tell them to hold. Reinforcements are not available. Sir, Relentless is requesting. Tell them to hold. The words were hard, but Carpenter knew the truth. If he diverted ships to rescue boarded vessels, the formation would break. And if the formation broke, the Dracorath would win. Sir. The communications officer looked up. Message from Colonel Venn. Sigma Division reports ready. Carpenter paused. This was the moment. The plan they had trained for. The gamble that could end this battle or doom them all. Status of the Black Horizon. In position. Stealth systems active. Undetected by enemy sensors. Carpenter looked at the tactical display. The throne of scales sat at the center of the Dracorath formation, protected by a wall of escorts. Its shields were at full power. Its weapons were devastating anything that came close. But every ship had a weakness. Signal Colonel Venn. Operation Blackout is authorized. Disable that flagship. Aye, sir. On the UEDC Black Horizon, Colonel Derek Venn received the order. He stood in the stealth carrier's launch bay, surrounded by his team. 4 men. The best Sigma Division had. Each one had trained for this mission specifically. Each one knew they might not come back. Venn's scarred face showed no emotion as he addressed them. You heard the order. We breach the Throne of Scales. We find their shield generator. We disable it. Then we get out, and let the fleet do the rest. Sergeant Dren Kowalski checked his shotgun, a custom weapon he called Whisper. And if we cannot get out? Then we make sure the shields go down anyway. Corporal Yusuf Smith finished syncing his tactical computer. I have their ship schematics. Shield generator should be in the lower engineering section. Heavy guard presence. Corporal Alexei Markov said nothing. He simply checked his rifle's scope, his face blank. Private First Class Tomas Reyes loaded the last of his breaching charges. How many Dracorath between us and the target? Unknown. Assume hundreds. Reyes nodded. Good. I brought extra charges. Venn almost smiled. Load up. Stealth pods launch in 60 seconds. The team moved to their pods. Small, single-occupant vessels designed for covert insertion. No weapons, no shields. Just speed and a sensor-absorbing hull. They would launch from Black Horizon, drift through the battle undetected, and attach to the Throne of Scales before the Dracorath even knew they were coming. That was the theory. Venn climbed into his pod. The hatch sealed. The launch countdown began. Around him, the battle raged. Human ships and Dracorath vessels tore each other apart in the void. The Aegis ring continued to fire, its platforms now reduced to 9. The Carthage traded broadsides with a Dracorath cruiser, both ships bleeding fire and debris. Everything hung in the balance. The countdown reached 0. The stealth pods launched. 5 metal coffins shot into the darkness, invisible to sensors, threading through the crossfire toward the enemy flagship. Venn watched through his pod's tiny viewport as plasma lances and railgun slugs crisscrossed the void around him. A Dracorath destroyer exploded less than a kilometer away. The shockwave rocked his pod, but did not breach it. He kept his breathing steady, focused on the mission. The Throne of Scales grew larger in his viewport, massive, terrifying. A predator frozen in metal, its hull scarred from 100 battles. His pod's computer chimed. 30 seconds to contact. Venn activated his tactical display. The other 4 pods were on course. No detection warnings. The Dracorath had no idea they were coming. 20 seconds. He checked his weapons. Rifle, sidearm, combat knife, grenades. 10 seconds. The throne of scales filled his entire viewport now. Its hull was a wall of dark metal, pitted with weapon ports and sensor arrays. 5 seconds. He braced himself. Impact. The pod hit the hull with a magnetic clamp, attaching silently to the surface. Ven felt the jolt, but did not move. Outside, the cutting torch activated, burning through the enemy armor in a controlled ring. 30 seconds later, the breach was complete. Ven dropped through the hole and into the throne of scales. The interior was exactly as intelligence had predicted. Hot, humid, dimly lit in shades of red and amber. The air smelled of ozone and something reptilian, a musk that clung to the walls and floor. His team dropped in behind him. Kowalski, Smith, Markov, Reyes, all accounted for. Ven signaled silently. "Move out." They advanced through the corridor, weapons raised. The ship thrummed around them. Engines, life support, the deep pulse of the shield generator drawing power from the main reactor. Somewhere above, Vorak Dreth commanded his fleet, unaware that humans were already inside his ship. That was about to change. Ven checked his tactical display. The shield generator was 4 decks down, through crew quarters, through security checkpoints, through whatever the Dracorath threw at them. He looked at his team. 4 men against a ship full of monsters. He moved forward. Behind him, the battle for Earth continued. The first Dracorath guard died without knowing what killed him. Markov's rifle coughed once. Suppressed. Precise. The round punched through the gap between the creature's helmet and neck scales. It dropped like a puppet with its strings cut. Plasma rifle clattering against the metal deck. Ven signaled the team forward. They moved through the throne of scales in tactical formation. Ven on point. Kowalski behind him. Whisper ready. Smith in the middle, eyes on his tactical display. Markov covering their 6. Reyes carried the breaching charges, his demolition pack heavy against his back. 4 decks to go. The ship's interior was a nightmare of alien design. Corridors twisted at odd angles. The walls were lined with conduits that pulsed with a sickly amber light. The air was thick, humid, at least 40 degrees Celsius. Sweat soaked through their tactical gear within minutes. Ven pushed forward. He had trained for this. They all had. 6 months of studying intercepted schematics. 6 months of drilling in mock-ups built to Dracorath specifications. Now they would find out if it was enough. They descended a service ladder to the next deck. More corridors. More heat. The thrum of the shield generator grew louder, a deep, resonant pulse that vibrated through the deck plates. Smith checked his display. 2 decks remaining. Shield generator is in the central engineering bay. Large compartment. Multiple access points. Guard presence? Ven asked. Unknown. But if I were them, I would have at least 30 soldiers protecting their most critical system. Assume 50, Ven said. Plan accordingly. They kept moving. The next Dracorath patrol appeared around a corner without warning. 4 soldiers, armored, armed. Their golden eyes widened as they registered the human intruders. Kowalski was faster. Whisper roared, a sound that was anything but quiet. The custom shotgun was loaded with tungsten flechette rounds, designed specifically to punch through Dracorath scales. The first soldier caught the blast in the chest and went down hard. Kowalski racked the slide and fired again. The second soldier's head disappeared in a spray of dark blood. The other 2 opened fire. Plasma bolts scorched the air. Ven dove left, returning fire with his rifle. Markov put a round through one soldier's eye. Reyes threw himself against the wall as a bolt missed him by centimeters, close enough to singe his sleeve. The last soldier charged. It was fast, terrifyingly fast for something so large. It crossed the distance in 2 strides, jaws open, claws extended. It slammed into Kowalski before he could bring Whisper up. They hit the deck together. The Dracorath's claws raked across Kowalski's chest armor, gouging deep furrows in the ceramic plate. Its jaws snapped at his throat. Kowalski jammed his forearm into the creature's mouth, feeling teeth scrape against his armored bracer. Ven pressed his pistol against the Dracorath's skull and fired twice. The creature went limp. Kowalski shoved the corpse aside, breathing hard. Blood seeped from where the claws had breached his armor, but the wounds were shallow. "You good?" Ven asked. "I will live." Kowalski retrieved Whisper from the deck. "But I am going to need a new vest after this. Add it to the requisition list." They kept going. One deck to go. On the bridge of the Throne of Scales, Korax received the report. Apex. He approached Vorak Dreth's command throne, his frill tight against his skull. "We have a problem." Vorak Dreth did not turn from the viewport. Outside, the battle raged. Human ships and Dracorath vessels tore each other apart in the void. The primitives were fighting harder than expected, dying harder. But they were still dying. "Speak," Vorak Dreth rumbled. "Intruders, inside the ship. A patrol failed to report. Security sensors detected weapons fire on Deck 7. Now Vorak Dreth turned. His golden eyes narrowed. "Intruders? Here? On my ship?" "Yes, Apex. A small team. They appear to be moving toward the engineering section." Vorak Dreth rose from his throne. His full height, 3.1 meters of scarred, scaled fury, seemed to fill the bridge. His tail lashed against the deck, cracking the metal plating. "The shield generator." "Yes, Apex. They're moving toward engineering." Vorak Dreth's jaws parted, revealing rows of serrated teeth. A sound emerged from his throat, something between a growl and a laugh. "Bold! For primitives!" He stepped toward Korax. "Take a kill team. Find them. Bring me their heads. I want to see what species dares to board the Throne of Scales." Korax bowed his head. "It will be done, Apex." He turned and strode off the bridge, already summoning his best soldiers to him. 12 warriors, veterans of 100 boarding actions. They would find these intruders, and they would make them regret ever setting foot on this ship. Sigma Division reached the engineering deck. The corridor opened into a massive chamber, the heart of the Throne of Scales. At its center, the shield generator rose like a pillar of dark metal and pulsing energy. Conduits snaked from its base in every direction, feeding power to emitters throughout the ship. The air hummed with barely contained force. Between Sigma and the generator stood 40 Dracorath soldiers. They were arranged in defensive positions throughout the chamber, behind consoles, on elevated walkways, clustered around the generator itself. Their weapons were raised and ready. They had been expecting company. Ven assessed the situation in 2 seconds. "Markov, elevated position, left walkway. Suppress their flanks. Kowalski, Reyes, with me. We push center. Smith, find me a way to disable their backup power. I do not want those shields coming back online after we blow the generator." "On it!" Smith was already moving, slipping along the chamber's edge toward a control terminal. Markov climbed. His rifle was an extension of his body. He found a position behind a support strut, sighted down the scope, and began picking off targets. 1 shot, 1 kill, then another, and another. The Dracorath returned fire. Plasma bolts filled the air. Ven led the charge down the center, using overturned equipment as cover. Kowalski was beside him, Whisper thundering with each shot. Reyes followed, the demolition pack bouncing against his back as he ran. They fought through the first line of defenders, then the second. Bodies fell, Dracorath soldiers crumpling under concentrated fire, but more kept coming. The chamber was too large, too many angles, too many enemies. A plasma bolt caught Kowalski in the shoulder. He spun, hit the deck, but kept firing from his back. Blood soaked through his armor. "Kowalski!" Ven grabbed him, dragging him behind a console. "I am fine. Keep going." Kowalski's face was pale, but his grip on Whisper never wavered. "Get Reyes to that generator. I will cover you." Ven hesitated for a fraction of a second. Then he nodded. "Hold this position. Do not die." "Not planning on it." Ven and Reyes pushed forward. Markov's rifle cracked overhead, dropping Dracorath soldiers before they could flank. Smith's voice came through the comm. "Backup power system located. I can disable it, but I need 60 seconds. "You have 30, Ven replied. They reached the base of the shield generator. Reyes was already pulling charges from his pack, his hands moving with practiced efficiency. He slapped the first charge against the generator's primary conduit, then the second, then the third. 15 seconds to arm, he said. Then we run. Ven turned to cover him and found himself face to face with Corax. The Dracorath second in command had entered the chamber through a side passage, his kill team fanning out behind him. He was massive, nearly as large as Vorak Dreth himself. His scales bore the marks of countless battles. His golden eyes locked onto Ven with predatory focus. "Human," Corax rumbled. "You should not have come here." Ven raised his rifle. "Neither should you." He fired. Corax moved faster than anything that size had a right to move. He dodged the burst, closed the distance in 2 strides, and swung his tail in a vicious arc. Ven dove under the strike, rolled, came up firing. Rounds sparked off Corax's chest armor. The Dracorath laughed, a deep, grinding sound. "Your weapons cannot hurt me, primitive." He lunged forward, claws extended. Ven sidestepped, drove his combat knife into the gap between Corax's arm and torso. The blade sank deep. Dark blood welled around the wound. Corax roared. His fist caught Ven in the chest, sending him flying backward into a console. Something cracked. Ribs, probably. Pain exploded through his body. Reyes finished arming the charges. "Done! We need to go!" Corax turned toward him, jaws parting. Ven drew his pistol and shot Corax in the eye. The Dracorath screamed, a sound that shook the chamber. He staggered, clawing at his ruined eye socket, blood pouring down his face. Ven was already moving, grabbing Reyes by the arm, pulling him toward the exit. "Smith! Backup power! Disabled! Go! Markov! Kowalski! Fall back!" Markov dropped from his position, sprinting toward the exit. Kowalski rose from behind his console, firing Whisper with one hand, while clutching his wounded shoulder with the other. The team converged at the chamber's main entrance. Behind them, Corax recovered enough to bellow orders. "Stop them! Kill them all!" Dracorath soldiers surged forward. Reyes hit the detonator. The charges exploded. The shield generator tore itself apart in a cascade of fire and shrapnel. The explosion ripped through the engineering bay, consuming soldiers and equipment alike. The shockwave threw Sigma Division through the doorway and into the corridor beyond. For a moment, everything was heat and noise and chaos. Then silence. Ven pushed himself up. His ears were ringing. His ribs screamed in protest. But he was alive. Sound off. Status. Markov. Functional. Smith. Minor burns. Operational. Reyes. I think I lost an eyebrow. Otherwise good. Silence. Kowalski? Ven turned. Kowalski lay against the corridor wall, Whisper still clutched in his hands. His eyes were open. His chest was still. A piece of shrapnel had found the gap in his armor. It had pierced his throat. Ven stared at him for a moment. Then he reached down and closed Kowalski's eyes. Sigma led to Carthage. Shield generator destroyed. 1 KIA. Recommend immediate fire mission on enemy flagship. Carpenter's voice came through, steady and calm. Confirmed. Sigma led. Longbow is firing. Get to extraction. On the bridge of the UEDC Carthage, Carpenter watched the tactical display. The Throne of Scales' shield signature had vanished. The flagship was defenseless. Longbow Station, you are cleared to fire. On the surface of Luna, 6 kinetic launch platforms activated. Magnetic rails charged. Targeting computers locked onto the coordinates transmitted by the Carthage. They fired. Tungsten rods, each one the size of a telephone pole, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. They crossed the distance between Luna and the Throne of Scales in seconds. The first rod hit the flagship amidships. It punched through the hull like a needle through paper, exiting on the other side in a spray of molten metal. The second rod hit 3 decks above, shredding the command section. The third struck the engine block. The Throne of Scales began to break apart. On the bridge, Vorak Dreth felt his ship dying around him. Explosions rocked the deck. Conduits burst. Crew members were thrown from their stations as gravity fluctuated wildly. He stood at the viewport, watching his fleet fall into disarray. Without his coordination, without his commands, the Dracorath Armada was fragmenting. Ships collided with each other. Formation broke. The Primitives' railguns tore into them with renewed fury. This could not be happening. He was the apex. He had never lost. He had never retreated. He had conquered 100 species, burned 1,000 worlds. He could not fall to these insects. Another impact shook the ship. The viewport cracked. Atmosphere began to vent. Vorak Dreth turned from the dying stars. His golden eyes found Korax staggering onto the bridge, one eye a ruined socket, blood coating half his face. "Apex," Korax gasped. "The ship is lost. We must evacuate." Vorak Dreth said nothing. He looked at the viewport one last time, at the human fleet advancing, at his armada breaking, at the world he had come to conquer, now staring back at him in defiance. "The Imperium does not retreat," he said quietly. The final longbow rod hit the bridge. Vorak Dreth ceased to exist. The battle ended not with a roar, but with silence. The Dracorath fleet, what remained of it, scattered. Some ships attempted to flee toward the outer system. Human destroyers ran them down. Others tried to surrender, broadcasting on all frequencies. The Carthage did not respond. Railguns spoke instead. By the time the last Dracorath vessel was reduced to debris, the Sol system was quiet again. Wreckage drifted through the void, the remains of ships from both sides. The Aegis ring, reduced to 7 platforms, fell silent. The guns cooled. On the UEDC Carthage, General Floyd Carpenter stood at the viewport of his bridge. He looked older than he had 6 months ago. The weight of command had carved new lines into his face. Behind him, his crew worked in exhausted silence, cataloging damage, coordinating rescue operations, counting the dead. There were many to count. 14 human ships destroyed, 6 more crippled beyond repair, over 3,000 personnel killed in action. The Relentless had been lost with all hands when its reactor breached during the boarding action. The Indomitable had survived, but barely. Its corridors were still being cleared of Dracorath corpses. A victory, but a costly one. Commander Torres approached. "Sir, Sigma Division has been recovered. 4 survivors. 1 KIA. Kowalski. And Colonel Venn is requesting permission to debrief." "Later. Let him rest." Carpenter paused. "Let them all rest." Torres nodded and withdrew. Carpenter remained at the viewport. The stars stared back at him, cold and indifferent. Somewhere out there, beyond the edge of the system, the Dracorath Imperium still existed. This fleet had been a vanguard, a conquering force sent to claim a primitive world. There would be more. But that was a problem for tomorrow. Today, Earth had survived. A communications officer approached. "Sir, we're receiving transmissions from the outer colonies. They're asking what happened. What do we tell them?" Carpenter was silent for a moment. What could he tell them? That the galaxy had collapsed while they slept? That an empire of predators had come for them? That thousands had died to buy Earth a single day? "Tell them the truth," he said at last. "Tell them we were attacked. Tell them we won. And tell them to prepare, because this isn't over." The officer nodded and moved away. Carpenter turned back to the viewport. His reflection stared back at him, an old man in uniform, carrying a weight that would only grow heavier with time. Torres stepped beside him and held out a datapad. Colonel Venn submitted this before he went to medical. He said you'd want to see it. Carpenter took the datapad. The image filled the screen, footage from Venn's helmet cam, captured during the firefight in the engineering bay. A Dracorath soldier lay slumped against a console. Clutched in its clawed hand, half melted by plasma fire, was a small device, a human device. Carpenter recognized it instantly. The emergency beacon. The one he had given to Turen years ago. One of the Dracorath had taken it from Turen's body. A trophy. Salvage. Something meaningless to them. They had carried it aboard the Throne of Scales without knowing what it was, or what it meant. Now it was nothing but melted slag on a dead ship. Carpenter studied the image for a moment. Then he handed the datapad back. "Archive it," he said. "Flag it as recovered enemy material." Torres nodded and stepped away. Carpenter remained at the viewport. Beyond the glass, the wreckage of the Dracorath fleet drifted in silence among the stars. Broken hulls, cooling metal, the remains of a force that had come to claim Earth and failed. The Dracorath had expected submission. They had found resistance. And somewhere in the debris of the Throne of Scales, tumbling among the dead and the ruined steel, a melted piece of human technology spun slowly through the void. It would never transmit again. It didn't need to. Its message had already been received. Lieutenant Kyle Anders had watched the Dracorath tear through Sol, too far away to fight, close enough to count every ship that burned. Earth had survived by a margin so thin it still screamed in his sleep. The edge of the Sol system was supposed to be quiet. Bastion Station had been built on that assumption. Early warning, first response, positioned between Jupiter's orbit and the outer dark, where nothing happened until it mattered. Anders sat at his console and watched nothing happen. Then his console beeped. Anders frowned. Probably debris. The system was still littered with wreckage from the battle. Dracorath hulls. Human ships that hadn't made it home. Every few hours, the sensors flagged something drifting through the outer approaches. He ran the diagnostic. The contact sharpened. Not debris, mass signatures. 47 of them. Coming in fast. Anders sat forward. His hands moved across the console, pulling detailed scans. FTL signatures, energy profiles, drive configurations he had never seen before. They dropped out of faster-than-light transit 3 million kilometers from Bastion Station. 47 ships, different sizes, different designs. Some looked like warships. Others looked like transports. A few looked like they had been held together with salvage and desperation. Anders hit the alert. Red lights flooded the command deck. Captain Oren Sanders moved to Anders' station. Report. 47 contacts. Unknown configuration. They just dropped in at Grid Echo 7. Sanders studied the display. IFF? Broadcasting. Anders isolated the signal. His breath caught. Sir, they're using Thalakai diplomatic codes. Sanders went still. Thalakai? Yes, sir. Emergency protocols. Species-specific. Everyone on Bastion knew what Thalakai meant. Ambassador Turen, the diplomat who had died activating a human beacon. The species Earth owed a debt it could never repay. Sanders straightened. Send the contact package to Carthage. Flag it Priority 1. Then open a channel to the lead ship. Yes, sir. Anders transmitted the data burst toward Earth. Light minutes away, the UEDC Carthage would receive it shortly. Then he activated the communication array. Static hissed. Then a voice came through. Calm, steady speaking. Flawless human standard. Bastion Station. This is Ver Turen, commanding the Coalition fleet. We seek sanctuary. We seek leadership. We come in peace. Anders looked at Sanders. Sanders nodded. Coalition fleet, this is Bastion Station. Hold position. Do not approach inner system. Armed response is inbound. Acknowledge. A pause. Then, acknowledged. Bastion Station. We will hold position. Please inform General Carpenter that the Son of Turen has arrived, and please inform him that the Dracorath Imperium is 1 month behind us. The channel cut. Sanders and Anders stared at each other. Then Sanders moved. Sound General Quarters, get me Carthage, now! Aboard the UEDC Carthage, General Floyd Carpenter stood in the flag bridge and read the report for the 3rd time. Thalkai codes. Refugee fleet. Dracorath, 1 month out. He set the datapad down. Captain Hale Mercer stood beside him, silent. Mercer was younger, 44, sharp-eyed, pragmatic. He had been an intelligence analyst before the Dracorath came. Now he advised Carpenter on matters that went beyond fleet tactics and into the realm of impossible decisions. They came to us, Mercer said quietly. They followed the only species that answered when called. Carpenter stared at the tactical display. The refugee fleet hung at the system's edge, unmoving, waiting. How long until Ironfall and Hammer of Terra reach intercept position? 20 minutes. And the rest of the fleet? Mobilizing now. Destroyer screen deploying from Luna. Aegis ring is operational. Longbow platforms are tracking the contacts. Carpenter nodded. Earth had spent 6 months rebuilding, expanding, preparing for the next attack. The Aegis ring had been restored to 9 orbital platforms. Longbow base on Luna now housed 8 kinetic launch stations. The fleet had grown from 40 ships to over 60. It still was not enough. Sir. Mercer kept his voice neutral. What are your orders? Carpenter considered. 47 ships. Unknown capabilities. Unknown intentions. The smart play was to treat them as hostile until proven otherwise. The human play was to remember who had died, so Earth could hear the call for help. Weapons ready, Carpenter said. But no first strike. Ironfall and Hammer of Terra establish perimeter. Destroyers hold at range. I want full sensor sweeps on every ship in that fleet. And get me a communication link to their commander. Yes, sir. Mercer moved to relay the orders. Carpenter remained at the display. Somewhere out there, beyond the edge of detection, the Dracorath Imperium was coming. A retaliatory fleet. A vengeance armada. Earth had killed their supreme commander. That was not the kind of insult empires forgave. And now refugees had arrived asking Earth to lead. Carpenter had not asked for this. He had answered a distress call. He had defended his home world. He had done his duty. That duty had not included becoming the axis around which a broken galaxy reorganized itself. But here they were. The communication officer looked up. Sir, link established. Audio only. Put it through. Static crackled. Then a voice filled the bridge. Steady, deliberate, carrying the faint harmonic overtones of Thalkai vocal structure. General Carpenter, I am Ver Turen. 6 months ago, my father died activating a device you gave him. He trusted you. He believed humanity would answer. He was right. Carpenter closed his eyes briefly. Turen, the diplomat with the kind eyes and the patient voice, the one who had argued for Earth's inclusion in the Galactic Council for decades, the one who had died trying to warn them. Your father was a good man, Carpenter said. He was, and his last act was faith in yours. A pause. General, I lead a coalition of 47 ships, 12 species, survivors, refugees, exiles. Some were slaves of the Dracorath. Others were political dissidents. A few were independent fighters who never surrendered. We are fractured. We are desperate. But we share one belief, that humanity is the only species capable of standing against the Imperium. We stood once. That does not mean we can stand again. The Dracorath do not agree. They are coming. A retaliatory fleet. Over 200 warships. They will arrive in 1 month. They will destroy Earth. Then they will hunt down every species that dared to flee toward you. Unless we fight together. Carpenter glanced at Mercer. Mercer's expression was grim. You are asking us to lead, Carpenter said. I am asking you to survive. Leadership is simply the cost. Silence filled the bridge. Outside the viewport, stars burned cold and distant. Earth hung below, blue and fragile. 8 billion people who had no idea what was coming. Carpenter made his decision. Coalition fleet, you are cleared for anchorage at Luna. Approach at 1/4 thrust. Weapons cold. Any deviation will be met with immediate termination. Acknowledge. Acknowledge, General. We are in your hands. The channel closed. Sir, Mercer asked, do we have any idea what we just let into the system? No. Carpenter turned from the viewport. But we are about to find out. Alert Commander Sanders on the Ironfall. I want full tactical assessment of every ship in that fleet. And get Colonel Venn. I want Sigma Division ready. You think we will need them? I think we need to be ready for anything. The Coalition fleet moved through the inner system like a procession of ghosts. Aboard the UEDC Black Horizon, Colonel Derek Venn stood at the observation deck and watched them approach. The stealth carrier hung in lunar orbit, positioned between the refugee fleet and Earth, ready to deploy, ready to strike. Venn had not slept well in 6 months. Sergeant Yusuf Smith stood beside him. Corporal Alexei Markov leaned against the bulkhead, silent as always. Corporal Thomas Reyes checked his demolition kit for the 3rd time that hour. 4 men. There used to be 5. Venn's hand rested on the shotgun mag locked to his thigh. Whisper. Kowalski's weapon. The breacher had carried it for 8 years. Now Venn carried it. A reminder. A burden. Sir! Smith gestured toward the viewport. Look at that mess! The Coalition fleet was a disaster in motion. Ships of a dozen different designs struggled to maintain formation. A sleek Thalkai frigate drifted alongside a battered Krinthax transport. Velgar clan warships, gray, angular, aggressive, jockeyed for position near the front of the formation. A collision warning blared as 2 ships came within 50 meters of each other. They cannot even fly straight, Reyes muttered. They are refugees, Venn said, not soldiers. Then what are we supposed to do with them? Venn did not answer. He watched a Velgar cruiser angle aggressively toward a Mirath colony ship. The Mirath vessel swerved, its bioluminescent hull flaring in what might have been fear or anger. The Velgar ship did not yield. Then Luna Traffic Control intervened. A terse broadcast. Both ships adjusted course. Smith shook his head. This is what we are supposed to lead? Better question, Venn said quietly. Can they even fight together? Markov said nothing. He simply watched, waiting. Venn checked Whisper one more time. The shotgun felt heavier than it should. Kowalski's ghost rode every mission now, every boarding action. Each time Venn loaded tungsten flechette rounds, he heard the breacher's voice, I will live. But he had not. Sir. Smith's voice pulled Venn back. Orders from Carthage. Carpenter wants us on standby. Full kit. Ready to deploy within 30 minutes. He thinks there will be trouble? He thinks there might be. Venn nodded. Gear up. Standard loadout. Reyes, bring extra charges. If we board one of those ships, I want options. Yes, sir. The team moved. Efficiently. 4 men who had survived hell together and knew they would do it again. Venn remained at the viewport. Below, the Coalition fleet settled into lunar anchorage. He tightened his grip on Whisper. Kowalski had died, so Earth could win. Now Earth was being asked to lead. Venn was not sure which was harder. The meeting took place in Carpenter's private briefing room aboard the Carthage. Ver Terren arrived alone. He was slender, even for a Thalkai. His feathered crest was blue-green, carefully maintained despite months of flight. His amber eyes were calm, but carried the weight of something heavier than exhaustion. He wore simple diplomatic robes. No armor, no weapons. Carpenter met him at the door. They did not shake hands. Talkai did not use the gesture. Instead, Vare inclined his head, and Carpenter returned the gesture. "General Carpenter, thank you for receiving me." "Your father earned that much." Carpenter gestured toward the table. "Sit." They sat across from each other. The room was small, functional. A tactical display showed the Coalition fleet in lunar orbit and the distant stars where the Dracorath would eventually emerge. Vare reached into his robes and withdrew a small data module. He placed it on the table. "Before my father entered the council chambers 6 months ago, he recorded a message for me. It was routine. He always did so before major sessions. He wanted me to know his intentions." Vare activated the module. A holographic projection flickered to life. Ambassador Terran appeared, older than Carpenter remembered, but still carrying that patient, gentle demeanor. The recording was brief. "Vare, I am about to enter the council chambers. Today I will speak for Earth again. They deserve a seat among us. Their potential is remarkable. Their integrity is genuine. When I return, perhaps I will have good news to share. Be well, my son." The projection ended. That was the last time I saw him. Hours later, the Dracorath came. The council fell. My father died. Carpenter nodded. Vare looked up. "He activated your beacon. We intercepted fragments of the transmission before the station was destroyed. He trusted you. He believed you would answer." "We did." "I know." Vare's voice was steady. 6 months ago, I was a junior diplomat. I had never commanded a ship. I had never led anyone. Then the Dracorath glassed my homeworld. I watched it burn from orbit. 2 billion Thalkai. Gone. Because my father dared to help humanity. Carpenter's jaw tightened. "The survivors looked to me," Vare continued, "because I was his son, because he had believed in something larger than fear. So I gathered what ships I could. I found others, Krinthax who had escaped slavery, Velgar clans who refused to submit, Myrath exiles who valued freedom over survival. We fled toward the only species that had ever resisted the Imperium, toward you. We did not ask to be followed. No, but you answered when called. That makes you our only hope of survival." Carpenter leaned back. "You are asking us to lead a war we did not start." "I am asking you to lead a war we will all lose if we fight it alone." Vare met his eyes. "General, the Dracorath are coming. Not to conquer, to eradicate. They will destroy Earth, to prove that resistance is impossible. Then they will hunt every species in this fleet. More than 200 warships. 1 month. You cannot win alone. And you think 47 refugee ships will make a difference? I think 12 species who have studied Dracorath tactics for decades might teach you how to survive. I think coordination might give us a chance. I think leadership might turn desperation into strategy." Vare paused. "My father believed humanity could unite a broken galaxy. Prove him right." Carpenter stared at the tactical display. Earth. Luna. The fragile ring of defenses humanity had built in 6 months. Beyond that, the dark, where an empire was coming. He reached into his jacket and withdrew a datapad. He set it on the table and activated the screen. The image showed a Dracorath soldier slumped against a console. Clutched in its clawed hand was a melted, half-destroyed device, a human emergency beacon. Colonel Venn recovered this from the throne of scales. Carpenter said quietly, "One of the Dracorath took it from your father's body. A trophy. They did not know what it was. They carried it aboard their flagship. It melted in the fires when we destroyed the ship." Vare stared at the image. His crest flattened against his skull, a Thalkai expression of grief. Your father trusted us, Carpenter said. He died trusting us. That debt cannot be repaid, but it can be honored. Then honor it. Lead us. Carpenter looked at the tactical display one more time. The Coalition fleet, the distant stars, the weight of 8 billion lives and a galaxy's desperate hope. He made his decision. 1 month, he said. We have 1 month to turn refugees into an army. Vare inclined his head. Then we begin. 72 hours after the Coalition arrived, Luna orbit was chaos. Commander Isaac Cross stood on the Ironfall Bridge and watched 2 Velgar warriors fighting on a docking platform's exterior hull. The fight had started over docking priority. Someone want to explain why we are allowing combat in vacuum? Cross asked. His tactical officer shook her head. Velgar honor protocol, sir. Intervening would escalate the conflict. Cross opened a channel to Carpenter. Sir, we have a problem. The Coalition cannot agree on anything. Honor duels blocking access. Hive minds demanding consensus authority. Democratic protests against military command. This fleet will tear itself apart before the Dracorath arrive. Carpenter's voice came back steady. Assemble species representatives. Carthage conference room. 2 hours. 42 representatives squeezed into a room designed for 30. Carpenter let them argue for 5 minutes. Then he stood. Enough. You came asking for leadership. I am providing it. His voice was not loud, but the room went silent. The Dracorath are coming. When they arrive, they will eradicate every species in this system. We have 1 chance. We fight together, or we die separately. He gestured to Captain Mercer. You will present your capabilities. We will determine how to combine them. No votes, no consensus delays, no honor duels over tactics. Understood? Clan Captain Rykor rose, massive and scarred. My clans respect strength. You killed Vorak Dreth, but leadership must be demonstrated continuously. Velgar, do not follow words. We follow action. Then watch what we do, Carpenter said. Rykor's lips pulled back in what might have been a smile. He sat. The Krinthax representative clicked rapidly. The translator rendered it. Hive consensus is survival. We operated as one for 600 years under Dracorath rule. You survived because you obeyed, Carpenter said bluntly. Here, you will learn to act independently when necessary, and coordinate when required. A Myrath representative named Silas spoke, his translucent skin pulsing nervous gold. We value democratic process. Military autocracy is what we escaped. I am asking you to survive long enough to practice democracy. When the Dracorath arrive, there will be no time for debate. You can vote after we win, if we win. Carpenter looked around the table. Now, you came with technology. We need all of it. Vare? Vare stood. Thalkai sensor technology. We can identify fleet compositions at twice the range of human systems. Mercer made notes. Integration possible? With modification, yes. The Krinthax clicked. We offer intelligence. 600 years of forced labor taught us Dracorath systems intimately. Gravity shear emitters are powerful, but unstable. Concentrated kinetic impact at emitter nodes causes feedback overload. Carpenter leaned forward. Our railguns could exploit that. Correct. Precision required, but achievable. Rykor stood. Velgar offer combat experience and plasma-based weapons. Our warriors can train your soldiers in pack coordination. Carpenter nodded. Coordinate with Colonel Venn. Silas spoke last. Myrath contribute medical nanites and energy shield prototypes. Experimental, unstable. Power requirements exceeded our reactor capabilities. The room went still. Energy shields. But it works? Carpenter asked. In theory. Brief defensive bursts. 40 to 50 seconds maximum before overload. Carpenter turned to Mercer. Assign engineering teams. Human and Myrath. Integration trials start immediately. Silas's patterns pulsed red. General, this is dangerous. So is dying without trying. Luna Engineering Facility became Integration Central. Lieutenant Carla Perez worked with Thalkai engineer Kess, installing sensor arrays on the UEDC Vigilant. Days later, the upgraded sensors detected the Dracorath fleet. 217 warships. Closing steadily. Carpenter studied the data. Send it to all teams. They need to know what is coming. Krinthax engineers shared Dracorath weapon weaknesses. Velgar demonstrated plasma weapons, but power requirements were too high for ship integration. Corporal Reyes suggested miniaturizing them for Sigma Division breaching charges instead. Rykor approved. We will teach you to use them properly. The SHIELD project consumed Perez and Silas. Myrath technology required power human reactors could not sustain continuously. What if we pulse them? Perez suggested. Short bursts. Capacitors charge, release, recharge. Silas studied the design. That could work. But will it? Testing required. They built the prototype in 4 days. The UEDC Hammer of Terra tested it outside Luna orbit. Simulated plasma lances fired. The shields held for 47 seconds before capacitors drained. Perez exhaled. It worked. The second test lasted 89 seconds. Carpenter ordered immediate production. Retrofit Carthage, Ironfall, Black Horizon, and primary destroyer screen. Perez turned to Silas. Your technology just changed this war. Silas's patterns shifted to soft blue. We attempted this for years without success. You made it work in days. This is due to human adaptability. Ven tested Whisper 2 on the Black Horizon firing range against salvaged Dracorath armor plating from the first battle. Tungsten flechettes coated with Velgar plasma compound punched through the scales and detonated inside with thermal energy. Kowalski would have loved this. Distribute to the team, Ven ordered. I will carry both. The coalition trained across the system. Velgar sparred with human marines. Krinthax rehearsed infiltration. Myrath integrated with field hospitals. Thalkai worked with human navigators. It was messy and frustrating, but it was progress. Combined fleet exercises went poorly at first. Translation delays caused chaos. Velgar broke formation. Krinthax clustered defensively. Myrath debated mid-drill. Run it again, Carpenter ordered. They ran it 5 times. Each iteration improved. Translation delays decreased. Formations held longer. Decisions came faster. It was not good, but it was better. Late into the preparation, Carpenter and Vare stood on the Carthage observation deck, watching Luna orbit glow with activity. The tactical display showed the Dracorath fleet closing relentlessly. Time was running short, but humanity had never needed much time to adapt. The shields held. That changed everything. General Floyd Carpenter stood in the Carthage flag bridge watching the tactical display reconfigure. Every coalition ship now carried updated profiles, shield-equipped vessels marked in blue, enhanced sensors in green, integrated weapons in amber. Captain Hale Mercer approached. Final readiness assessment, sir. 78% operational integration. Shield systems on 17 primary combat vessels. Thalkai sensors active fleet-wide. Krinthax sabotage protocols distributed. Coordination? Improved. Functional. Carpenter nodded. Assemble command staff. War Council. 1 hour. The conference room filled quickly. Verteren, Commander Cross, Colonel Ven, Clan Captain Rykor, Krinthax delegation, and Silas clustered around the tactical display. 217 Dracorath warships shone in red beyond detection range. Thalkai sensors confirmed final fleet composition, Carpenter said. Multiple assault waves. They arrive in less than 2 weeks. Commander Cross stood. Standard doctrine would position our fleet at Earth orbit. Meet them head on. That gets us killed. We are outnumbered 4-1. Direct engagement favors them. So we do not engage directly, Carpenter said. We use Sol's geography. Make them bleed for every approach. Defense layers appeared on the display. Outer perimeter, Velgar fast attack, and Thalakai reconnaissance. Harassment and intelligence. Slow their advance. Mid-system, human destroyer screen with Krinthak sabotage drones. Target emitter weak points. Inner defense, Carthage, Ironfall, Hammer of Terra at Earth. Luna range. Final line. He highlighted Luna's surface. Project Goliath. Experimental ultra-long-range mass driver. Untested. Ven spoke from the back. Decapitation strikes? Possible. If intelligence identifies their flagship and command structure, Sigma may deploy for boarding operations. Disable shields, cripple coordination. Create opening for the fleet. Ven nodded. We'll be ready. Rekor growled. You are letting them into the system. I am controlling where they fight. Rykor inclined his head. Respect earned. Deploy to positions. Combat readiness. 12 hours. Dismissed. Thousands of light years away, War Commander Malgros the Relentless studied the tactical display. Sol system. One target. His sub-commanders waited in silence. Malgros was not like Vorak Dreth. Vorak had been large, aggressive, certain. He had ruled through intimidation and died underestimating prey. Malgros studied the humans differently. He had reviewed every fragment from the Battle of Sul, analyzed tactics, watched recordings. The humans were dangerous. Underestimating them was what killed Vorak Dreth. Report, he rumbled. The humans integrated coalition species, Thalkai sensors, Velgar tactics, shield technology. They are no longer fighting alone. Malgros's tail swept slowly. They adapt quickly. Vorak Dreth failed because he treated them as prey, Malgros said. I will not repeat his mistakes. Alter fleet disposition. Deploy reconnaissance saturation. Map their defenses before we commit. War Commander, this delays arrival. It ensures victory. I will not lose because I was impatient. The display flickered. Tyrannus Kurvoth materialized, younger than Vorak. Fewer scars, eyes carrying desperation. Malgros, the Imperium grows impatient. 6 months since Vorak fell. The galaxy watches. Every delay emboldens our enemies. Every day of preparation prevents repeating Vorak's failure. Kervoth's jaws parted. You question my orders? I follow them. Total extermination. But with certainty, not haste. The traditionalists say I am weak. They demand immediate action. I am undefeated in 40 years of command. The traditionalists know politics, not war. If you wish me to succeed where Vorak failed, allow me to prosecute this war as I see fit. Silence. Kervoth leaned forward. Total extermination. No survivors. No mercy. The transmission ended. Malgros turned to his sub-commanders. Advance the fleet. Send the scouts. The engagement began beyond Neptune's orbit. Thalkai frigate Clarity's Edge detected 12 Dracorath scouts, advancing in staggered formation. Carpenter opened fleet-wide channel. All outer perimeter units engage. Velgar fast attack groups, maximum damage, minimum exposure. Rykor's voice crackled back. My clans are moving. Bloodfang, Iron Claw, Stormhowl accelerated toward the scouts. 3 human destroyers followed. Talon, Reaper, Spearhead. The Velgar struck first. Bloodfang dove beneath formation. Plasma cutters raking ventral hull. Iron Claw flanked above. Concentrated fire. Pack coordination. The Dracorath scout exploded. First blood. But 11 scouts responded instantly. Plasma lances lit void. Gravity shears tore space. Professional. Disciplined. Stormhowl took direct hit. Reactor breach. White fire. Gone. Pull back, Rykor ordered his clans. Velgar ships broke formation. The scouts pursued into human firing solution. Talon, Reaper. Spearhead opened fire simultaneously. Railgun rounds crossed 3 million kilometers in seconds. The first scout's emitter exploded. Feedback cascade. Dead in void. Second scout lost weapons. Third took command section hit and tumbled. Talon took plasma hit, armor melting. Reaper rolled, presenting reinforced plating. Spearhead continued precise fire. Velgar ships circled back, harassing flanks. Pack tactics. 8 minutes after engagement began, 8 Dracorath scouts destroyed or crippled. 4 survivors fled. Casualties. Velgar lost Stormhowl. 37 warriors. Talon crippled. 15 human casualties. Rykor transmitted to Carpenter. 8 kills. Your tactics work. Carpenter's voice steady. Good. Let the new commander know we are ready. Aboard the Endless Hunger, Malgros received scout reports in silence. His sub-commanders waited for rage that would have come from Vorak. It did not come. Malgros studied data. Human precision. Velgar coordination. Integrated tactics. They are better than expected. Should we accelerate assault? No. They want us angry. Reckless. He turned from display. Alter approach vectors. Full mapping before main fleet commits. That takes days. Then it takes days. The humans will die when I choose. On the Carthage flag bridge, Carpenter had been silent, reviewing battle footage. This new commander is different. Vorak would have charged after losing 8 ships. Carpenter turned to Mercer. Fleet-wide tactical revision. Assume Dracorath will counter current strategies. Prioritize unpredictability. We just achieved coordination. Now, introduce chaos. Introduce adaptation. Dracorath, fight with doctrine. We fight with improvisation. Project Goliath. Accelerate calibration, targeting solutions ready within 72 hours. Black Horizon hung in Luna's shadow. Colonel Venn stood in the armory running final equipment checks. Krinthak sabotage drones, Velgar plasma charges, Myrath medical nanites, 12 Whisper 2 shotguns laid out in precise rows. Sergeant Smith entered. Sir, the team is ready. What's the mission? Unknown until engagement begins. We prepare for everything. Smith nodded. Sigma Division did not plan for single scenarios. They prepared to adapt. Carpenter's voice came over the fleet-wide channel. All personnel to battle stations. Fleet alert status raised to combat readiness. Stand by for enemy arrival. Venn racked the slide. Outside, Saul's defenses arrayed. Coalition fleet positioned. Velgar prowling outer approaches. They were not defending anymore. They were preparing to strike. The Dracorath fleet came like a storm made solid. Thalkai sensors detected the first distortions at the edge of the Kuiper belt. Gravitational displacement signatures so massive they bent predictive models out of alignment. Energy profiles followed. Then the ships themselves emerged from faster-than-light transit in perfect formation, an armada materializing with surgical precision. On the flag bridge of the Carthage, red contacts flooded the tactical display. General Floyd Carpenter stood at its center, hands clasped behind his back, watching the enemy fleet take shape as if Sol itself were being infected. Captain Mercer stepped in close. Coalition intelligence confirms the flagship, Dracorath command vessel Endless Hunger. New war commander identified, Malgros the Relentless. Malgros, Carpenter said quietly. The fleet advanced, not with the blunt aggression Vorak Dreth had favored, but with disciplined restraint. This was a commander who expected resistance and had already accounted for it. Carpenter opened the fleet-wide channel. All outer perimeter forces, engage at discretion. Velgar fast attack groups. You have operational authority. Thalkai reconnaissance units. Maintain sensor coverage and provide targeting data. Objective is harassment. Force dispersion. Maximum disruption. Rekor's growl answered immediately. My clans move now. We will draw first blood. Make it count, Carpenter said. The Coalition's outer screen accelerated to meet the enemy 3 million kilometers beyond Neptune's orbit. Velgar ships struck first. Bloodfang and Iron Claw plunged beneath the Dracorath formation, plasma cutters tearing across destroyer screens in coordinated pack dives. Shadowfang flanked high, raking exposed engine clusters. Thalkai frigates held back, feeding targeting data to human destroyers with relentless precision. The first Dracorath destroyer died hard, hit from 3 vectors at once, shields collapsing, hull rupturing as atmosphere vented into the void. "First kill!" Rykor roared. "Press!" The answer came instantly. Dracorath destroyers held formation. Fire overlapped. Plasma lances converged on Shadowfang. Her shields endured seconds, then failed. The reactor breached. The ship vanished in white fire. 41 Velgar warriors were gone before the debris finished expanding. "Pull back!" Rykor snarled. "Reform!" Velgar ships disengaged cleanly. Withdrawing along angles the Dracorath did not chase. They didn't need to. Human destroyers opened fire from range. Railgun rounds crossed the void. Tungsten penetrators striking gravity shear emitters exactly where Krinthak's intelligence said they would break. 2 Dracorath ships lost close-range capability in cascading overloads. Then, point defense grids activated, kinetic interceptors tearing incoming rounds apart mid-flight. Not perfect. Effective enough. Commander Cross's voice cut in. "They've hardened emitter defenses. Our advantage is degraded, roughly 40%. Carpenter didn't look away from the display. "All outer forces disengage. Fall back to secondary positions. Do not extend." The Dracorath fleet advanced methodically, clearing the outer approaches without pursuit or waste. "He studied us," Carpenter said. "The fighting didn't stop. It spread." Over the following cycle, engagements blurred into a grinding series of mid-range clashes across millions of kilometers. Human destroyers fought running battles against Dracorath battle groups. Velgar clans bled ship by ship. Thalkai scouts pushed their sensors to failure. The Talon was destroyed during a withdrawal maneuver, 17 minutes under sustained plasma fire. 143 crew lost. The Spearhead limped back to Luna with a shattered reactor core, combat ineffective. The Reaper held the line alongside Stormkiller and Broken Talon for 6 hours. Stormkiller didn't survive. Broken Talon lost propulsion. Reaper withdrew with most of her ammunition expended. Krinthak's sabotage drones launched in waves. Some penetrated, disabling shields, corrupting targeting systems, but most were intercepted. Anti-infiltration protocols adapted quickly. Myrath medical teams worked without pause. Nanites saved lives. They couldn't save time. And the Dracorath kept coming. Relentless, adjusting, advancing. On the Carthage, the flag bridge felt like a sealed chamber watching its air run out. Carpenter called an emergency command meeting. The room was tight with tension. Ver-Terran sat rigid, crest drawn close. Cross stood near the tactical display. Mercer reviewed casualty projections. Rykor entered last, armor stained dark with dried blood. "Report," Carpenter said. Cross didn't soften it. 3 human destroyers lost, 2 crippled. Velgar losses, 5 ships destroyed, 3 damaged. Thalkai, 1 frigate lost. Krinthak's drone effectiveness down to 30%. We are losing the exchange. Rykor's voice was raw. "You promised wounds. Instead, we bleed." Silas's bioluminescence flared. "This cannot continue. We should consolidate at Earth." The Krinthak's delegation clicked. Fractured consensus. Carpenter let the noise rise. Then he stood. "You're right," he said. Silence fell. "This strategy is failing. Malgros adapted faster than we anticipated. If we continue, we lose everything before Earth becomes relevant." Rykor leaned forward. "Then speak." "A gamble." Mercer activated the display. Luna's surface filled the air. An immense installation carved into a crater. power conduits radiating toward a weapon that dwarfed anything mounted on a ship. "Project Goliath," Carpenter said. "Ultra-long-range kinetic accelerator, one shot, 50-ton tungsten projectile, effective across millions of kilometers." Cross frowned. "One shot? 90 seconds to fire, 12 hours to recharge." Silas's patterns dimmed. Against a moving fleet? "Against the flagship," Carpenter said. "Decapitation." Vare spoke softly. "If we can hit it." "We won't," Mercer said. "Not unless Malgross commits." Carpenter nodded. "Which he will, if we convince him he's winning." A staged retreat. Real losses. Endless hunger moving forward to coordinate the kill. "If we miss?" Cross asked. Carpenter glanced at Ven standing against the wall. "Sigma boards the flagship." Ven didn't blink. "We will not miss our part." Rekor studied Carpenter for a long moment. "You ask Velgar to retreat. I ask you to win." Silence. One by one, they nodded. Rykor's claws tapped the table once. The Krinthax clicked assent. Silas's glow faded to reluctant violet. Vare inclined his head. Carpenter activated the fleet-wide channel. "All ships, new operational orders incoming. We are executing a staged withdrawal to inner system defenses. This is bait. We will draw the Dracorath forward. Casualties are expected. Victory is possible." He closed the channel. "We have one shot," he said. "Let us make it count." The endless hunger moved into position. From the bridge of his flagship, War Commander Malgross the Relentless watched the human defenses contract toward Earth orbit. Velgar ships withdrew in staggered groups, firing as they fell back. Human destroyers traded long-range fire and yielded ground. Thalkai frigates peeled away, their sensor feeds thinning. It looked like collapse. Malgross did not mistake desperation for incompetence. The humans had fought well, adapted quickly, coordinated species that should never have worked together. But pressure, sustained long enough, broke even clever prey. He turned to his command staff. "All battle groups advance, final assault positions, fleet coordination authority remains centralized." The endless hunger settled into a stationary command posture, its vast system synchronizing 200 warships into a single, lethal instrument. Malgross watched the final targeting cycle begin. 4 minutes. On Luna, deep within the crater housing Project Goliath, Lieutenant Carla Perez stood at her console and ignored the tremor in her hands. "Target locked. Trajectory stable. Margins unacceptable. But holding. Goliath ready," she transmitted. Carpenter's voice came back calm, unadorned. "Fire." Perez initiated the sequence. Luna's power grid collapsed in a controlled cascade. Lights died across the moon as emergency systems took over. The accelerator rails flared with contained lightning, energy screaming through structures never meant to endure it. The tungsten penetrator launched. 50 tons of metal accelerated to a fraction of light speed and vanished into the void. Alarm screamed aboard the endless hunger. "Incoming mass signature, extreme velocity." Malgross turned, already knowing. The humans had one more weapon. They had waited until he committed. Shields surged to full power. Triple layers flared. The penetrator punched through the first shield without slowing. The second failed catastrophically. The third collapsed under forces no design doctrine accounted for. Impact. The flagship did not explode. It came apart. Armor vaporized. Internal structures failed in cascading collapse. Reactor conduits ruptured. Gravity stuttered and surged. Malgross was thrown from his command throne as the bridge shattered around him. When the shaking ended, smoke filled the air. Emergency lighting flickered. His tactical display still functioned long enough to show him the truth. Shields, gone. Propulsion, crippled. Command systems, fragmented. He had been baited. "Transfer coordination authority," Malgross ordered, hauling himself upright. "Independent engagement. Continue the assault." This battle was not yet lost. Sigma Division launched into chaos. Colonel Derek Venn watched the feeds update as their pods cut through debris and weapons fire. The Endless Hunger was crippled, but the fleet was still fighting, and Coalition assets were dying. Cross's voice cut through the channel. Thalkai frigate Clarity's Edge is disabled. Dracorath closing. Crew trapped. Sigma, can you extract? Venn did not hesitate. Affirmative. The pods redirected. Clarity's Edge was already dying. Venn led the breach, Whisper 2 raised, moving through smoke and drifting bodies. Emergency lighting painted the corridors red. Thalkai crew clustered around the wounded, holding a discipline born of training and desperation. We're getting you out, Venn said. Move. Dracorath boarding teams cut in moments later. The fighting was brutal and close. Plasma scorched bulkheads. Whisper 2 tore through armored bodies at meters' distance. Markov's rifle cracked with precision from Overwatch. They held the corridor. They paid for it. 3 operators fell, covering the evacuation. There was no time to mourn, only to keep moving. The last pod detached as Clarity's Edge broke apart under concentrated fire. 42 Thalkai lived. Sigma did not leave intact. The battle reached its breaking point around the dying Endless Hunger. Human capital ships advanced, railguns hammering exposed hull. Velgar pack ships struck in coordinated fury, plasma cutters carving through weakened armor. Thalkai, targeting data, held the line together by sheer exhaustion and will. Krinthak's drones swarmed, sowing failure across Dracorath systems. The flagship was coming apart. Malgros watched from auxiliary command as his fleet fractured without him. Some ships fought on, others began to disengage. He had seconds to choose. Pride had killed Vorak Dreth. Malgros chose survival. All remaining ships, he ordered, voice flat. Disengage, withdraw. The Dracorath fleet broke and ran. Aboard the Carthage, Carpenter watched the tactical display shift as enemy contact scattered. Do we pursue? Cross asked. Carpenter looked at his own fleet, damaged, depleted, bleeding. No, he said. Let them go. Saul still stood. That was enough. Body bags lined the hangar on the black horizon. Venn stood among them, still in armor. 3 more names, 3 more faces. Smith spoke quietly. Extraction successful. Venn nodded once. No words. There weren't any that mattered. It had cost exactly what survival always did. Far beyond Sul, Malgros reviewed the data he carried with him. The humans adapted under pressure. They coordinated across fracture. They accepted loss without collapse. The Imperium did not understand what it had encountered. It should, because Saul had survived. Earth turned beneath the fleet, intact, alive, and everyone knew the price would never be forgotten. You are a coward. The words were still hanging in the air when the plasma spear Tyrannus Curvoth, ripped from one of his personal guards, punched straight through Malgros the Relentless's chest. The impact locked Malgros's body in place against the chains. Plasma burned through scale, muscle, and spine in a single brutal thrust. The smell of cooked flesh filled the throne chamber. Malgros didn't scream. Dracorath war commanders didn't scream. He stared back at Curvoth, jaws clenched as blood ran down the spear shaft and steamed against the black stone floor. I survived, Malgros rasped. To warn you. Curvoth twisted the weapon deeper. Bone cracked. You survived because you ran, Curvoth said. You abandoned the hunt. I preserved fleet command, Malgros forced out. The humans are not prey. They field kinetic weapons beyond our predictive models. They coordinate allied species with incompatible combat doctrines. They adapt faster than any doctrine the Imperium has faced. Curvoth shoved the spear another inch forward. Malgros coughed black blood across the throne chamber floor. The Imperium does not adapt to vermin, Curvoth growled. Vermin are exterminated. Don't underestimate the humans, Malgros said. They crippled my flagship with a weapon launched from their moon. They baited our fleet into a kill zone using coalition misdirection. If you treat them as primitive, you will lose more than fleets. You will lose control of every species watching this war. A ripple of anger spread through the chamber. Traditionalist officials hissed from the shadows. Kurvoth leaned closer, golden eyes burning with controlled fury. You are not being executed for losing ships, he said quietly. Malgros understood instantly. You're executing me because admitting they are dangerous would make you look weak. Kurvoth smirked. Correct. He jerked the spear sideways. The plasma tore through Malgros's lung. The war commander's legs buckled against the chains. You gathered intelligence by abandoning extermination orders, Kurvoth said. You embarrassed the Imperium. You allowed prey to believe they can survive. Malgros forced air into ruined lungs. Blood bubbled with every word. They already believe it, he said, because they already did. For the first time, silence fell across the chamber. Kurvoth ripped the spear free, letting Malgros collapse forward against his restraints. The Supreme Commander watched him struggle to stay conscious. You mistake 2 lucky battles for proof of strength, Kurvoth said. The humans have never seen the Imperium at full scale. Malgros tried to laugh. It came out as a wet, choking sound. They will, he said, and when they do, they'll kill you the same way they killed Dreth. Kurvoth drove the spear through his heart. The chains rattled once, then went still. The Supreme Commander let the body hang for a moment before turning to the watching officials. Let this be understood, he said. The Imperium does not retreat. The Imperium does not fear adaptation, and I do not tolerate commanders who forget they are apex. The officials bowed. Kurvoth dropped the spear and walked back toward his throne, stepping around the spreading pool of blood without looking down. Behind him, Malgros the Relentless hung lifeless in chains. And with him died the only warning the Imperium would ever receive about humanity. 24 hours after the retreat of War Commander Malgros, a single damaged ship limped into Sol's outer detection grid. Lieutenant Kyle Anders flagged it immediately. The vessel was broadcasting distress codes, but the encryption was old. Black market old. Captain Oren Sanders appeared at his shoulder. Pirate configuration, Anders said. Heavy damage, requesting emergency docking. Sanders studied the profile. Patchwork hull, mismatched engine clusters, weapon mounts that had no business being on a civilian frame. Armed escort, Sanders ordered. Bring them to Bastion, and get me Carthage. Aboard the Carthage, General Floyd Carpenter received the transmission with Mercer standing beside him. A scarred face filled the screen. Missing left eye. Burns across the jaw. The kind of damage that came from surviving things that should have killed you. General Carpenter. The voice was rough, blunt. Name's Vorn, captain of the Carrion's Prize. I've got something you need. We don't negotiate with pirates. Good thing I'm not negotiating. Vorn leaned closer to the camera. I'm selling. Raided a Dracorath agri-world 6 months back. Found a virus that killed every crop on the planet. Thought it was useless. Then I heard you bastards killed Vorak Dreth. A pause. You want to kill gods? Vorn said. Here's how you make them bleed. The meeting took place in a sealed conference room, armed guards at every entrance. Vorn sat across from Carpenter, a data module on the table between them. Dracorath Agri-World, Vorn said. Designation Cal 7. We hit their storage facilities. I figured I'd found a crop blight. Thought maybe I could use it. Wipe out their food supply. Make the bastards starve. He paused. His jaw tightened slightly. Then I saw the fields. Dracorath bodies everywhere. Not just farmers, soldiers. Dead between the rows. Bleeding from their eyes. Their mouths. Every damn orifice. He looked directly at Carpenter. That's when I realized it wasn't killing the crops. It was killing them. Carpenter activated the module. Data streamed across the display. Genome sequences, infection vectors, mortality curves. Why bring this to us? Because the galaxy's in chaos. Everyone's talking about the species that beat the Imperium. You're the only ones who might actually use this. Vorn leaned back. I want sanctuary. Amnesty. The Dracorath have a long memory for raiders. Carpenter studied him, then nodded to Mercer. Take him to secure holding. Comfortable. Guarded. They left. Carpenter stared at the data. Then he called Dr. Nathan Keel. Kale arrived within the hour, 53 years old, gray at the temples, a CDC virologist before the Dracorath invasion. Now he weaponized pathogens for wars that officially didn't exist. He took the data module without speaking and disappeared into his lab. Carpenter didn't hear from him for 18 hours. When Kale emerged, he looked like he hadn't slept. It's not a crop blight, he said. It's species-specific. Carpenter gestured to the chair. Kale remained standing. The genome contains a dormant sequence unique to Dracorath physiology. It likely evolved alongside them on their homeworld. With modification, it can be activated. He brought up a projection. Rotating gene strands. Clean, precise. Airborne transmission. Incubation measured in hours. Hemorrhagic cascade, once symptomatic. Fatality rate? Carpenter asked. 100%. Carpenter didn't react. Planetary spread? Within days. Silence settled between them. How long to make it viable? Carpenter asked. Weeks. Less if I have staff. You'll have them, Carpenter said. We'll designate it Operation Ashvale. Kale gave a small nod. I'll require full containment protocols. You'll have them. Another pause. Kale closed the display. If we deploy this, he said evenly, there won't be a Dracorath civilization left to retaliate. Carpenter met his eyes. I know. Kale picked up the data module. I'll begin immediately. He left. Carpenter remained where he was, watching the tactical display without seeing it. Beyond Sol, the Imperium was assembling another fleet. Inside Luna, humanity was assembling something else. 5 days later, 12 elegant vessels materialized at Sol's edge. The ships were unlike anything humanity had encountered. Organic curves, bioluminescent hulls that pulsed with soft light, no visible weapons, no aggressive posture. Verteren identified them immediately. Valerian ascendants, nomads, pacifists. His feathered crest flattened. They fled the Imperium twice rather than fight. Carpenter watched the formation hold position. Peaceful, patient. Why are they here? I do not know. The Valerian do not involve themselves in wars. The lead vessel transmitted a request for diplomatic contact. Carpenter granted it. Ascendant Lear I arrived aboard the Carthage flanked by 2 attendants. She was tall, 2 meters, with pale luminescent skin that glowed faintly in the dim light. Large eyes without visible pupils. Delicate features that suggested fragility but carried something far older. She moved with fluid grace and spoke in a voice that felt like calm water. General Carpenter, I am Lear I speak for the Valerian Ascendants. Carpenter inclined his head. Why have you come? We abandoned 2 worlds rather than fight the Dracorath. You defended one. She paused. We were wrong. The words settled heavily in the room. We believed survival meant distance. We believed if we ran far enough, the Imperium would eventually turn its attention elsewhere. Her glow shifted. Steady, but subdued. It did not. Mercer watched her carefully. So you're here because you're dying? No, Lyrae said calmly. We are dying because we kept running. Silence followed that. We bring a gift, she continued. Functional FTL jump technology. Faster than light transit across galactic distances. The drives are stable. Proven. We offer them freely. Carpenter studied her. Why? Because fleeing did not save us. It only postponed the inevitable. We have learned that survival without resistance is merely a slower extinction. She held Carpenter's gaze. You resisted. That changed the calculus. Her glow dimmed slightly. Our species numbers 1,000 individuals. We will not recover, but our knowledge can. A pause. We will not die as a warning. We choose to die as a contribution. Carpenter held her gaze. You're offering us FTL capability. Yes, and instruction. Navigator Silthan will teach your pilots. A slender male Valerian stepped forward. His glow was brighter, younger. The drives are stable, Silthan said. Your operation of them will improve with practice. Carpenter looked at Vare. The Thalkai's amber eyes were wide. With FTL, Vare said quietly, you could reach anywhere, even Kethros Prime. Kethros Prime, the Dracorath homeworld. Carpenter turned back to Lirai. We accept. Training began immediately. Hours later, Silthan stood in a salvage shuttle bay, watching a human pilot strap into a Valerian-modified transport. The Krinthax had integrated the FTL drive with human interface systems. Crude, functional. Engage the drive when ready, Silthan said. The pilot activated the sequence. Space folded. Reality bent. The shuttle vanished. 3 million kilometers away, it reappeared. The pilot's vitals spiked. Nausea, disorientation, elevated heart rate. But he stayed conscious. Functional. Silthan's glow pulsed with approval. Your species adapts quickly, he said when the pilot returned. Most require months. You will be ready in weeks. The pilot removed his helmet and vomited into a disposal unit. Feels like my insides got turned outside, he muttered. That sensation diminishes with repetition. Silthan gestured to the next volunteer. Who is next? While the pilots trained in FTL, Dr. Kale worked with a dedicated team beneath Luna's surface, accelerating development. Samples from Cal-7, infected crop tissue brought by Vorn, rested inside containment fields. The pathogen moved through plant cells with aggressive efficiency, accelerating under controlled atmospheric conditions. Kale built a composite biological model. Thalkai archives provided xenogenetic baselines. Krinthax intelligence contributed detailed Dracorath physiological structure, circulatory redundancy, organ clustering, metabolic tolerances. Valerian evolutionary projections helped simulate homeworld co-adaptation patterns. The data was incomplete. It would have to be sufficient. Kale modified the dormant genome string and ran predictive simulations against the Dracorath model. Projected outcome? Systemic vascular collapse. Projected incubation? 6 hours. Projected mortality? Near total saturation within 72 hours of atmospheric release. Uncertainty margins remained high. He moved from simulation to controlled exposure. The engineered strain was introduced into reconstructed Dracorath cellular matrices based on coalition genetic data. Hemorrhagic failure initiated within minutes. He ran the sequence again. Identical results. Then he tested human tissue. No reaction. The virus passed through harmlessly. Species-specific targeting confirmed. Kale recorded the findings without comment. He turned to the capsule assembly station. Coconut-sized spheres. Pressurized aerosol dispersal system. Altitude trigger with timer redundancy. At 15,000 meters, the seal would rupture, releasing the pathogen into upper atmospheric currents for continental distribution. 4 capsules, 4 dispersal points. Projected planetary saturation. He sealed the first unit and secured it inside a reinforced containment case. 1 down. 3 to go. A week later, 3 crystalline ships arrived. They were beautiful, geometric structures that refracted light into prismatic patterns. Resonance, Kael'thar spoke for them. His voice was harmonic, musical, each word a layered tone. We are Korvathi, remnant of billions, survivors of 3. We offer advanced energy shielding technology in exchange for sanctuary. Lieutenant Perez analyzed their systems within hours. Coalition shields last 89 seconds under sustained fire, she reported. Korvathi shielding doesn't collapse on a timer. It's dynamically sustained. As long as the reactor can feed it, the barrier regenerates continuously. She adjusted the display, frowning slightly. But it's not invulnerable. Heavy saturation fire can overwhelm the power curve. If energy input exceeds reactor output for long enough, the field destabilizes. Perez looked up. It buys endurance, not immunity. Carpenter approved integration immediately. Within days, shield upgrades were integrated across the Coalition fleet. Beneath Luna's surface, Sigma Division trained in the engineering bay. The salvaged Dracorath shuttle sat scorched and battered, but operational. Crinthak's engineers had rebuilt the control systems. Biometric bypasses installed. Flight data recovered from debris. Ven sat in the cockpit. The seat was too large. The controls were raised tactile symbols meant for clawed fingers. 2 weeks, the Crinthak's delegation clicked. You will fly adequately. Adequately. You will not die during takeoff. Survival during combat is variable. Ven gripped the alien yoke. Smith, Markov, and Reyes practiced with him. 4 additional operators rotated through training. 8 total. 4 teams. 4 atmospheric hubs. 4 dispersal points. Then the sensors screamed. Thalkai long-range detection picked up gravitational distortions at the edge of known space. Massive. Coordinated. Ver brought the data to Carpenter personally. Carpenter looked at the tactical display. He convened the War Council. The room was crowded. Carpenter, Mercer, Cross, Ver, Ven, Kale, Lear-I, Kael'thar, Rykor, Silas. Dracorath fleet, larger than Malgros commanded, he said. Lear-I approached, her luminescent glow dimmed with concern. We have identified the flagship from its energy signature, the Dawnbreaker, larger than Vorak Dreth's throne of scales. Carpenter looked at her. Who commands it? Tyrannus Kurvoth, the Unyielding, Lear-I said quietly. The second apex, younger than Vorak. He executed War Commander Malgros for retreating from Sol. The Imperium's traditionalists demanded immediate vengeance. Kurvoth leads this fleet personally to prove his legitimacy. Carpenter nodded and changed the tactical display. 2 images. Sol system. Kethros Prime. Kurvoth's fleet will arrive here. He gestured to Sol, expecting to destroy Earth in battle. While we engage his fleet, Sigma Division strikes here. He indicated Kethros Prime, and releases the virus on their homeworld. Ven stepped forward. Sigma Division stands ready to deploy to Kethros Prime. Kale activated holographic projections. 4 dispersal points. Atmospheric transport network. Capsules detonate at altitude. Jet streams carry the virus across continents. Planetary saturation within 72 hours. Lear-I's glow pulsed softly. Our FTL drives will carry you there and bring you home. Rykor growled. And while your team kills their world, we kill their fleet. Carpenter nodded. 2-front operation. Simultaneous execution. When Kurvoth arrives at Sol, his homeworld will already be dying. Silence. Mercer spoke carefully. Sir, if we fail, the Dracorath genocide Earth. If we succeed, we genocide them. Carpenter looked at each of them. I'm not asking if this is right. I'm asking if you'll do it. One by one, they nodded. Carpenter turned to Ven. Can your team execute this? Ven's expression didn't change. We'll finish the mission. We always do. The Velarian vessel was called Lightweaver. Ven stood in its pristine interior and felt out of place. Everything was smooth, organic. The The walls pulsed with soft bioluminescence. No hard edges, no weapon mounts. A ship built by a species that had never known war, until now. Navigator Silthan moved through the bridge with fluid grace, his luminescent hands dancing across controls that responded to touch and thought. "Your team is secured?" he asked. Ven glanced back. 7 operators sat in acceleration couches designed for Valarian physiology. Smith, Markov, Reyes, 4 others, Dax, Kasim, Hale, Yates. All checked equipment in silence. Whisper 2 shotguns. Biometric overrides. 4 sealed containment cases. Planetary extinction in coconut-sized capsules. "We're ready," Ven said. Silthan's glow shifted. Approval or concern, Ven couldn't tell. The jump to Kethros Prime will be unpleasant. He activated the FTL drive. Space began to fold around the ship. "Do not fight it. Surrender to the sensation." "How long?" Ven asked. "Subjectively, hours. Objectively, seconds." The drive engaged. Reality bent. Ven's stomach inverted. The sensation was worse than training. His vision tunneled. His inner ear screamed that he was falling in 6 directions simultaneously. Time stretched and compressed. He tasted copper. Felt his cells vibrating out of sync with the universe. Then it stopped. He gasped. Looked around. Smith was pale. Reyes gripped his harness like it was the only real thing left. Markov sat perfectly still, either unaffected or refusing to show weakness. Dax vomited into his helmet. "Apologies," Silthan said. "The first long-distance jump is always difficult." Ven forced himself upright, looked at the viewport. A planet hung before them. Dark red atmosphere, continents visible beneath swirling clouds, massive cities glowing against the night side like infected wounds. "Kethros Prime, the Dracorath homeworld. We are at the system's edge," Silthan said. "Undetected. When you complete your mission, transmit on this frequency." He displayed coordinates. "We will extract you." "And if we don't transmit?" Ven asked. Silthan's glow dimmed. "Then we will mourn, and tell Earth what you did." The insertion shuttle was small, cramped. A salvaged Dracorath transport the Krinthax had modified with human interface systems and falsified transponder codes. Ven took the pilot seat. 2 weeks of training, alien controls, muscle memory born from repetition and necessity. He activated the engines. The shuttle detached from Lightweaver and began its approach to Kethros Prime. Behind him, the team was silent. Smith finally spoke. "Never thought I'd die on an alien homeworld." Reyes checked his demolition pack. "Better than dying at home watching it burn." Markov said nothing, just checked his rifle once more. Ven gripped the control yoke, too large for human hands, designed for clawed fingers. "We're not dying," he said. "We're finishing this." The shuttle entered atmosphere. Heat washed over the hull. Turbulence shook the frame. Ven fought the controls as alien friction coefficients tried to tear them apart. Through the viewport, the planet revealed itself. Cities sprawled across continents. Massive, ancient, built over millennia of conquest and expansion. Architecture that celebrated dominance. Towers that reached toward the sky like claws. And Dracorath. Everywhere, not soldiers. Civilians. Walking streets. Operating vehicles. Living lives. Dax stared. "Sir, there are families down there." "There were families on the Thalkai homeworld too," Ven said. 2 billion of them. The Dracorath glassed it from orbit. Dax said nothing. The shuttle's comm crackled. "Dracorath traffic control. Deep. Hissing. Aggressive even in routine transmission. Unidentified transport. Transmit authorization codes." Ven activated the Krinthax override. Falsified transponder. Slave-era workarounds embedded in systems the Dracorath never bothered to secure, because who would dare? Silence. Then, Cargo Transport 739er, you are cleared for commercial hub approach. Proceed to landing zone 12. The channel cut. Smith exhaled slowly. It worked. Of course it worked, Reyes muttered. The Krinthax ran their systems for 600 years. They know every back door. The Imperium never imagined anyone would try this. Ven guided the shuttle toward the coordinates. Below, the capital city, the Crucible, spread like a scar across the landscape. They landed in a commercial district. The bay was massive. Hundreds of shuttles, cargo haulers, passenger transports, the infrastructure of an empire that had never known siege. Ven powered down and looked at his team. Final check. Capsules? Each team leader confirmed. 4 sealed containment cases. 4 coconut-sized spheres of engineered extinction. Biometric overrides? Smith tapped his wrist unit. Krinthax tech is online. We can bypass Dracorath security. Weapons? Whisper 2 shotguns. Plasma charges. Backup sidearms. Ven stood. We split here. 4 teams, 4 targets. You know your objectives. He activated a tactical display. The Crucible and surrounding regions. 4 marked locations. Team 1. Capital Atmospheric Hub. Dax and I. Highest population density. Highest security. We draw attention. Team 2. Northern Industrial Hub. Smith and Kasim. Factory districts. Heavy cargo traffic. Lower security. Team 3. Eastern Coastal Hub. Markov and Hale. Port operations. Oceanic platforms. Markov provides overwatch during extraction. Team 4. Southern Agri-Hub. Reyes and Yates. Agricultural zones. Rural. Reyes handles contingencies. He looked at each of them. Synchronization is critical. All shuttles launch within a 5-minute window. Detonation at altitude. 15,000 meters minimum. Timer backup if altitude trigger fails. Extraction point? Smith asked. Here, this bay. Rendezvous in 90 minutes. Valerian will be waiting at system edge. Silence. Ven picked up his capsule case. 20 minutes from first launch to final detonation. 4 dispersal points. Planetary extinction. He met their eyes. If anyone gets compromised, proceed anyway. Mission over individuals. He thought of Kowalski bleeding out on the throne of scales. We've finished the mission, Ven said. All of us. Smith stepped forward, extended his hand. Ven gripped it. Markov gave a single nod. Reyes managed something that might have been a smile. See you on the other side, Colonel. Count on it. They dispersed into the alien city. Ven and Dax moved through maintenance tunnels beneath the Crucible. The passages were wide, built for Dracorath work crews. Hot, humid. Service conduits lined the walls. Emergency lighting cast everything in red. Krinthax schematics guided them through the maze. 600 years of forced labor meant the former slaves knew every tunnel, every access point the Dracorath never bothered to secure. The capital atmospheric hub sat directly above them. Maintenance access should put us inside the launch bay, Ven said. Bypass security entirely. They climbed through a vertical shaft, emerged inside a service corridor adjacent to the main hub. Through the bulkhead, the sound of thousands of Dracorath, merchants, travelers, families preparing for journeys. But they didn't need to go through the terminal. Krinthax intelligence had mapped the shuttle maintenance base. Direct access to parked craft, no checkpoints, no scanners, just service workers and automated systems. Ven checked the bay schedule on a nearby terminal. Krinthax override codes unlocked it instantly. Civilian passenger shuttle, high altitude route, launch bay 7, departure in 12 minutes. Dax's breathing was unsteady. Stay focused, Ven said. They moved through the service corridor. No crowds, no guards. Just the hum of machinery and the heat of Dracorath infrastructure. Launch Bay 7 opened before them. The shuttle sat ready, fueled, automated pre-flight complete. That one, Ven said. They moved quickly. In the northern industrial zone, Smith and Kasum infiltrated a cargo facility. Automated systems, fewer organics, heavy machinery moving containers the size of buildings. Katsim accessed the cargo manifest. Freight hauler departing in 8 minutes. Altitude profile is good. Smith checked the capsule. Planted in the ventilation system. Set timer for 15 minutes. They moved. At the eastern coastal hub, Markov and Hale approached a tourist shuttle on an oceanic platform. Whined off the water. Salt in the air. Dracorath civilians boarding for a sightseeing flight along the coast. Hale spoke quietly. Security is light. Target is clear. Markov nodded. They planted the capsule in the shuttle's environmental system, armed the timer, 14 minutes. A security guard noticed them. Markov's rifle cracked once, suppressed. The guard dropped. They boarded the shuttle as engines powered up. In the southern agricultural zone, Reyes and Yates infiltrated a rural transport hub. Fewer Dracorath, open skies, fields stretching to the horizon. They located their target, agri-transport, supply shuttle for remote farming stations, planted the capsule, set timer, 13 minutes. A young Dracorath, juvenile, curious, watched from a distance. Reyes froze. The child stared, tilted its head, then turned and walked away. Yates looked at Reyes. "Sir?" "Get to the shuttle," Reyes said quietly. They boarded as engines ignited. Ven and Dax reached their target shuttle. The ventilation access was secured. Dax worked the override while Ven kept watch. Alarm suddenly screamed. Security forces converged. Dracorath soldiers in armor, weapons raised. "Go!" Ven shouted. Dax opened the panel. Ven grabbed the capsule, placed it inside, armed the timer. Plasma fire erupted. Dax took a hit to the shoulder. Armor absorbed most of it, but he went down hard. Ven pulled him up. They ran. The shuttle was powering up, boarding ramp closing. They dove through as it sealed. Ven threw Dax into a seat and took the pilot position. Dracorath security outside, weapons firing. Ven's hands moved across alien controls. Engines engaged. The shuttle lifted. Plasma lanced past the viewport. They climbed. Across Kethros Prime, 4 shuttles ascended. 12,000 meters. 13,000. Timers counting down across all 4 shuttles. Smith transmitted. "Northern shuttle at altitude. Capsule deployed. Breaking off." Ven watched his altimeter. 14,000 meters. Dax was bleeding. Conscious but pale. "Sir, release it now." "Not yet." Then the interceptors appeared. 3 Dracorath military craft, fast, armed, targeting the shuttle. Traffic control screamed demands. "Unidentified shuttle, return to hub immediately." Ven ignored them. Altitude, 14,500 meters. The first interceptor fired. Plasma struck the starboard engine. The shuttle lurched. Controls sparked. Ven's hands burned, but he held course. Altitude, 14,800 meters. "Almost there, Colonel," Dax said. The second interceptor fired. Direct hit. The cockpit breached. Atmosphere screamed out. Dax took the plasma bolt through his chest. Dead instantly. Ven felt heat sear his left side. Armor melted, skin beneath burning. But his hands stayed on the controls. Altitude, 14,900 meters. Close enough. Smith's voice crackled through dying comms. Northern capsule detonating in 3, 2. Markov's shuttle. Confirmation click. Reyes. Southern dispersal on schedule. Ven looked at his timer. 4 minutes. Looked at his altitude. 14,950 meters. The shuttle was dying. Controls failing. But the capsule was armed, and the jet streams at this altitude would carry it across the continent. Ven transmitted. "Capital dispersal on schedule. Extract without me." Smith's voice broke. "Colonel, your status?" Ven pulled Kowalski's whisper from his mag lock, held it, thought about the breacher's last words. "I will live." Ven smiled through pain. "That's an order, Sergeant." He cut transmission. The third interceptor fired. The shuttle came apart. Timer hit 0. The capsule detonated. Pressurized aerosol erupted into Kethros Prime's atmosphere, a cloud of engineered death spreading on winds that would carry it across continents. The wreckage fell. Ven never felt the impact. Across the planet, 4 detonations, 4 dispersal clouds. Virus spreading on jet streams and wind currents. Planetary saturation beginning. Smith's shuttle crash-landed in industrial wasteland. He and Kasim extracted, moving toward rendezvous. Markov and Hale ditched the tourist shuttle over open water, swam to shore, alive, extracting. Reyes and Yates abandoned the agri-transport over empty fields. Both survived landing, en route to extraction point. Smith's voice came through the team channel. Broken. "All teams, sound off." Responses came in. Northern team, Eastern team, Southern team. Silence where Ven should answer. Smith closed his eyes. Proceed to extraction. The Colonel completed his mission. Far above Kethros Prime, Sylvan received the transmission. 6 operators, not 8. He did not ask what happened. He simply prepared the Lightweaver for extraction. And on the planet below, the virus spread. Silent, invisible, inevitable. The extinction of an apex species had begun. Millions of light-years away, Kurvoth's fleet entered the Sol system. General Carpenter stood on the Carthage Bridge and watched sensors bloom with red contacts. Hundreds of ships, more than Malgros had brought, more than Earth had ever faced. Kurvoth's voice boomed across all frequencies. "Humanity, you humiliated the Imperium. Now you will learn what it means to defy the Apex." Carpenter looked at Mercer, at Cross, at the Coalition fleet arrayed around Earth. "All ships," he said calmly. "Battle stations." The war had arrived. Kurvoth's fleet arrived like a storm of vengeance. Hundreds of ships dropped from FTL at Sol's Edge. The Dawnbreaker led them, bristling with weapons, a monument to Kurvoth's need to prove himself worthy of Vorak's throne. Aboard the Carthage, General Floyd Carpenter watched red contacts flood the tactical display. Captain Mercer stood beside him. Commander Cross transmitted from the Ironfall. The Coalition fleet arrayed itself, human capital ships, Korvathi crystalline vessels glowing with sustained shields, Velgar pack formations, Thalkai scouts feeding targeting data. Kurvoth's voice boomed across all frequencies. "Humanity, you killed Vorak Dreth. You humiliated the Imperium. Now you will learn what it means to defy the Apex. Your world will burn. Your species will be remembered only as a lesson in the futility of resistance." Carpenter looked at Earth hanging below. Blue, fragile, 8 billion lives. He opened the fleet-wide channel. "All ships, engage at will." The battle erupted. 3 million kilometers away, on Kethros Prime, the first Dracorath collapsed in the street. Blood poured from his eyes, his nose, his mouth, internal hemorrhaging visible through translucent membranes beneath his scales. He tried to call for help. Blood filled his throat. He died choking on it. Within the hour, hundreds more fell. Within 6 hours, thousands. The virus spread on every breath, every cough, every scream. Hospitals overflowed. Medical staff infected while treating patients. No cure, no treatment, no escape. The crucible descended into chaos. Plasma lances crossed the void above Earth. The Dracorath fleet advanced with overwhelming firepower. Kurvoth had brought 3 times what Malgros commanded. Hundreds of ships coordinating in brutal synchronization. The Coalition met them with everything they had. Korvathi shields flared under sustained bombardment. And held. The crystalline vessels absorbed punishment that would have vaporized human ships. Their energy barriers didn't fail, didn't collapse. Just endured. Velgar pack ships dove through Dracorath formations. plasma cutters raking destroyer screens. Rykor's Bloodfang led the assault, scarred and battered but refusing to yield. Human railguns fired with Thalkai precision. Tungsten penetrators struck exactly where Krinthak's intelligence said they would. Gravity shear emitters, reactor junctions, shield generators. Dracorath ships died, but so did Coalition vessels. A Thalkai frigate broke apart under concentrated fire. A Velgar clan ship exploded defending a human destroyer. The UEDC Spearhead, already damaged from previous battles, took a direct hit and went dark. The void filled with debris and corpses. On Kethros Prime, panic became horror. The virus had spread across 4 continents. Millions infected. Hundreds of thousands already dead. Emergency broadcasts screamed warnings. Stay inside. Avoid contact. Seek medical treatment. But there was no treatment. Only death. A Dracorath mother held her child as they both bled from their eyes. A merchant collapsed in his stall, blood pooling beneath him. A soldier on leave for his daughter's hatching died watching her bleed out in his arms. The cities emptied as the living fled the dying. But the virus traveled with them. Respiratory transmission, inevitable spread, planetary extinction in motion. Kurvoth identified the Carthage as the Coalition's command nexus. He had studied Vorak Dreth's failure. The humans coordinated their fleet through centralized command. Kill the command ship, fragment the defense. All battle groups, Kurvoth ordered. Concentrate fire on the human flagship. Destroy it. The Dawnbreaker led the assault personally. Carpenter watched the tactical display shift as dozens of Dracorath ships converged on the Carthage. "Sir," Mercer said carefully, "they're targeting us specifically." "I see it." Plasma lances hammered the Korvathi shields. The barriers held, but the energy drain was catastrophic. Power systems struggled to maintain the defensive field under sustained bombardment. "Shields at 60%, the tactical officer reported. Cross-transmitted from the Ironfall. "General, we can take over fleet coordination. You need to withdraw." "Negative," Carpenter said. "Maintain assault on Dawnbreaker. All railgun platforms, target their flagship." "Sir, execute." The Coalition fleet turned its fury on Kurvoth's ship. Aboard the Dawnbreaker, alarm screamed as tungsten rounds punched through armor plating. "Shields holding," a sub-commander reported, "but damage is accumulating." Kurvoth watched the tactical display. The human flagship was weakening, shields failing under his assault. But his own ship was bleeding. "Continue firing," he ordered. "Destroy that flagship." On the Carthage, the shields collapsed. Plasma lances tore through the hull. Deck after deck breached. Fires erupted across engineering sections. Crew died at their stations. The bridge shuddered as a direct hit vaporized the starboard weapons array. Mercer was thrown against a bulkhead. Blood ran down his face. He pulled himself upright. "Sir, we need to evacuate. The ship is lost." Carpenter remained at the command station, hands steady on the controls, coordinating fleet movements, transmitting targeting priorities. Not yet. Another hit. The view screen cracked. Atmosphere began venting through a hull breach near the bridge. Emergency systems sealed it. Barely. "Shields gone," the tactical officer said. "Hull integrity at 30%. Reactor approaching critical." Cross's voice, desperate. "General, please, get to the escape pods." Carpenter looked at the tactical display. The Dawnbreaker was damaged, bleeding, but still functional, still coordinating the Dracorath fleet. He opened a direct channel to every Coalition ship. "All vessels. Concentrate all fire on Dawnbreaker. Ignore everything else. Cripple that flagship. That is my final order." Mercer grabbed Carpenter's arm. "Sir, Floyd, the ship is dying. You have to go." Carpenter met his eyes. "Get to an escape pod. Tell them we held the line. I'm not leaving you." "That's an order, Captain." The bridge buckled. Structural supports collapsed. Fire spread across consoles. Carpenter pushed Mercer toward the emergency exit. "Go!" Mercer stumbled toward the hatch, looked back once. Carpenter was already back at the command station, transmitting coordinates, target priorities, fleet movements. The hatch sealed. Carpenter watched the tactical display through smoke and flames. The Coalition fleet was focusing everything on the Dawnbreaker. Railguns, plasma cutters, concentrated assault from every angle. Kurvoth's flagship shuddered under the barrage, shields failing, hull breaching. Carpenter allowed himself a small smile. Through the cracked viewport, Earth hung below. Blue, beautiful, alive. The reactor alarm reached critical pitch. Carpenter transmitted one final message. Earth stands. Make sure it stays that way. The Carthage exploded. The shockwave rippled across the battlefield. For a moment, the Coalition fleet faltered. Then Mercer's voice came through from an escape pod. Broken. Determined. All ships. This is Acting Commander Mercer. General Carpenter's final order was to destroy that flagship. Execute. The fleet rallied with renewed fury. Kurvoth watched the Carthage's debris field expand. Victory. The human command ship destroyed. Their coordination should collapse now. But the assault on Dawnbreaker intensified. Railgun rounds tore through weakened armor. Velgar ships swarmed like predators, sensing blood. Korvathi shielded vessels advanced without fear, absorbing fire that should have killed them. Shields at 15%, his subcommander reported. Multiple hull breaches. Reactor fluctuating. Kurvoth stared at the tactical display. The human flagship was gone. But the fleet fought harder, not weaker. He had killed their general, and they were destroying him for it. All ships, Kurvoth ordered. Disengage. Fall back to Kethros Prime. Supreme Commander, execute the order. The Dracorath fleet began to scatter. Mercer floated in his escape pod, watching the enemy retreat. Cross transmitted. Should we pursue? Mercer looked at the Carthage debris field. Carpenter's grave, thousands of crew gone. Looked at Earth, still intact, still blue. No, he said quietly. There's nowhere left for them to run. The Coalition fleet held position. Sol had survived. But the cost was written in burning wrecks and empty command stations. At the edge of the Kethros Prime system, the Lightweaver materialized from FTL. 6 operators boarded in silence. Smith, Markov, Reyes, Kasim, Hale, Yates. Sylvan's glow dimmed as he counted them. Where is your commander? Smith's voice was flat. He completed the mission. Sylvan said nothing, just prepared the jump back to Sol. The team sat in the pristine interior. No one spoke. Ven was gone. Dax was gone. But the virus was spreading. The FTL drive engaged. Reality folded. They left Kethros Prime behind. Kurvoth's damaged Dawnbreaker limped into orbit above his homeworld. He expected to regroup, plan a counteroffensive, return to Sol with overwhelming force. Instead, planetary distress signals flooded his comm. Transmissions screaming about plague, death. What is this? Kurvoth demanded. His sensors officer pulled up fragmented medical reports. Hemorrhagic symptoms, rapid spread, entire districts collapsing. No identified pathogen, no effective treatment. It's everywhere, the officer said. We don't understand how it's spreading. Kurvoth landed in the crucible. The capital was dying. Bodies in the streets. Blood everywhere. Survivors stumbling, bleeding from eyes and mouths. Hospitals overflowing with the dying. Medical staff collapsing at their stations. He accessed planetary medical reports. The data was catastrophic. Incubation, 6 hours. Symptoms, internal hemorrhaging, respiratory failure. Death, inevitable. Transmission, airborne, respiratory, unstoppable. Infection spread, all 4 continents, all major population centers. Casualties, millions dead, billions infected. Kurvoth stood in the empty throne room and understood. Realization struck like a physical blow. The humans. They didn't just defend. They attacked. He tried to coordinate emergency response, quarantine protocols, medical research, evacuation. All futile. Hours passed. He felt the first pain in his chest, internal, sharp. Then his nose began to bleed. He touched his face. Blood came away on his claws. He had breathed the contaminated air when he landed, walked among the infected, stood in the dying city. He was already infected, already dying. No, he whispered. But biology did not negotiate. His eyes began to bleed. Kurvoth collapsed in the throne room alone. He thought about Malgros's warning. Don't underestimate the humans. They adapt. They coordinate. They will kill you the same way they killed Dreth. He had executed Malgros for cowardice, and Malgros had been right. The humans were not prey. They were not victims. They were a disease, a plague, an extinction event. And he had underestimated them. Blood filled his lungs. He coughed. It sprayed across the throne room floor. His final thought, we treated them as vermin. They exterminated us like vermin. Kurvoth the Unyielding died bleeding on the floor of an empire that no longer existed. Days later, a Valerian scout ship approached Kethros Prime. Silthan transmitted findings to Acting Commander Mercer. No Dracorath life detected. Cities empty. Virus burned through the population. Complete extinction confirmed. Mercer sat in the command chair that had been Carpenter's, stared at the data. An entire species. Gone. He closed his eyes. Understood. Returned to Saul. On Earth, they held a funeral for General Floyd Carpenter. Military honors. Coalition attendance. Every species that had fought under his command. Ver Terren spoke. General Carpenter united a broken galaxy. He gave his life ensuring it survived. We honor him. We remember him. We will never forget what he sacrificed. An empty casket. His body was lost with the Carthage. Earth mourned. Aboard the Black Horizon, Sigma Division gathered in front of the memorial wall. Smith added Ven's name beside Kowalski's. 2 commanders, 2 missions, both completed. Markov stood silent. Reyes stared at the names. The surviving operators said nothing. Smith placed the remaining Whisper 2 units in a sealed case beside the original Whisper. 11 shotguns. Ven's was lost with him on Kethros Prime. We finished the mission, Smith said quietly, just like he said we would. No one responded. There was nothing left to say. Weeks later, reports flooded in. Mercer stood on the bridge of the Coalition flagship. Dozens of species requesting diplomatic contact, asking for Earth's leadership, seeking guidance from the only power that had defeated the Dracorath Imperium. Ver approached. The galaxy is watching, Commander. They see Earth as their protector. Mercer looked at the casualty reports. We didn't ask for this, Mercer said. No, Ver agreed, but you answered when called. That is why they follow you. Mercer turned to the viewport. Earth hung below. Blue. Alive, victorious. He thought about Terren, about Carpenter, about Ven, about Kowalski, about the price of survival. The galaxy fell overnight when the Dracorath massacred the Council. Now it looked to Earth to lead. But leadership had required becoming something no one expected. Not a victim, not a hero, a plague.
Hey there, space human. I'm really curious about your thoughts on this video. Drop a quick comment and let me know what's on your mind. Or just say hi if you prefer. Either way, I'd love to hear from you. Also, remember to check the pinned comment. Trust me, it's worth a look. Oh, and one last thing. I've chosen another video for you to watch. Just click the card here. Or here if you want the whole playlist. See you there.